Good evening. We'll call to order the regular session of the Newport Beach City Council, November 22nd, 2016. Madam Clerk.
The record will reflect that Councilmember Piotr has an excused absence.
Please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance, led by Mayor Pro Tem Muldoon, followed by our invocation by Councilmember Petros.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please join me in prayer. Heavenly Father, in Psalm, you say, I will give thanks to you, Lord, with all my heart. I will tell of all your wonderful deeds. Father, as we move into this wonderful holiday season, let us pause and give thanks for all the bounty that we have. Those that are with us during this holiday, our family and friends, those away from us who can't be there, let us remember them. Those that serve in the military and in public safety that keep us safe and free, and especially our family and loved ones, Father. Thank you so much, and we ask this in your name. Amen.
Madam Clerk.
The city provides a yellow sign-in card to assist in the preparation of the minutes. The completion of the card is not required in order to address the city council. If the optional sign-in card has been completed, it should be placed in the box provided at the podium. The City Council of Newport Beach welcomes and encourages community participation. Public comments are generally limited to 3 minutes per person to allow everyone to speak. Written comments are encouraged as well. The City Council has a discretion to extend or shorten the time limit on agenda or non-agenda items. As a courtesy, please turn cell phones off or set them in the silent mode. Now's the time for City Council announcements.
Mr. Petros. Mr. Curry. Mr. Selledge.
Yes, I have an announcement. I was going to say at the last council meeting that the cows are coming, but I forgot, and the cows are here.
The cows have come home.
They have come home. So the Arts Commission, to fill the gap in our sculpture garden for that 6-month period, has arranged for the Ronald McDonald House program that's going on across the United States to come to Newport Beach, and the cows will be installed in the the Civic Center Park. I think there's one up at Oasis, at Coast Highway and Jamboree, and some other locations around town. And I think that when they're done in this 6-month period, that I think folks will be able to buy them at an auction, which will go to charity and help the Ronald McDonald House. And there'll be more information coming out from the Arts Commission once all the cows get installed. I don't think quite all of them are here yet. So look for the cows and enjoy them. They'll be a nice addition to the city. And it was all done with no city money. It was all private contributions. So kudos to the Arts Commission for looking towards our goal to get more private participation in our arts programs.
Very good. Thank you. Councilmember Duffield.
I have none.
Mayor Pro Tem.
None.
And I have a few announcements, as usual. First off, I am giving a heads up. I will hold my last Mayor's Town Hall meeting Monday, December 5th. Mark your calendars, 6:30 p.m. We will have it at the Friends Room at the Central Library. All are welcome to attend, so please mark your calendars. Speaking about the library, I'm pleased to announce that our Newport Beach Public Library was recently named as a Star Library in a ranking of more than 7,300 actually U.S. public libraries in the country. The libraries were scored in 5 areas: circulation, electronic circulation, library visits, program attendance, and public access for computer use. Of the 260 named as America's Star Libraries, only 12 are in California, and Newport Beach Public Library was the highest scoring library in Orange County. So congratulations. I see some members of our library staff here, Mr. Heatherton. Congratulations. And to our supporters and volunteers for helping to make the Newport Beach Library the best that it is. So thank you. Speaking of library programs, Let's Talk Tech is in our award-winning library. There's a training series, and in preparation of this announcement, I actually went to the software programs called Lynda, lynda.com, because this is offered for free in our library, which if you don't do it through the library, you have to pay for it. It's an amazing training, online training courses from everything from website design to short story writing. It's an amazing online educational program that's offered free in our library, so at the Media Lab. So contact the library for more information. Shifting gears a little bit, I'm really highly pleased, very pleased to announce a very exciting new program that our Community Development Department is launching and has launched. It's called our Business Ambassador Program, and I'll make a few introductory comments, and Ms. Brandt will comment as well. This is a program that is really giving our business owners, our business license taxpayers, money for their taxes or services for their taxes, because there's no costs or no additional fees associated. Your business license tax at work. What this is, a business ambassador program. It's designed to help businesses, new businesses as well as existing businesses, new businesses to Newport Beach, navigate our regulatory processes in the Community Development and Planning Department. Both new business owners and existing owners who are modifying their businesses will be teamed up with an experienced, customer-friendly city business ambassador so they can obtain the important information they need to navigate the city's processes quickly and efficiently. Customer service in our Community Development Department is job number one. And a business ambassador will serve as a primary contact and coordinator to assist the business owner with navigating through all the city's requirements of opening or expanding a business and streamline the process wherever possible. As can be seen in the overhead, a person can request help on the city's website with a simple click and answering a few general questions. And within one business day, an ambassador will be assigned and personally respond to the customer's inquiry and stay assigned throughout the duration of that customer's project. The assigned ambassador will be the business owner's primary contact person in the city to help answer their questions, help them through the city requirements throughout their entire project, and just be there for them as their customer service representative. And the key aspects of the program will be to provide guidance on zoning, permits, signs, business licenses, fees, and other requirements, and new business tools and incentives that the city offers. And additional business-related information is also available, of course, on the city's website. And city staff will be reaching out to the Chamber of Commerce and city's various business associations to let them know about this new program. So please go to the website and learn more about it. And I'm really pleased that the Community Development and Planning Department have created this business and customer-friendly approach to serving our community. Our staff is the front end to our business owners and are dedicated to serving as a one-stop shop to answer applicant questions and help resolve issues. And I'm pleased that the staff tested out this new approach with some business-friendly methodology, including focus groups and talking to recent business owners, new business owners to the city to see what worked for them and what didn't work and how can the process be improved. So I commend our department and staff for bringing this forward, and I want to ask Director Brandt if you have any other comments to make. So congratulations and thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Dixon. No, I think you've said it very well, and we are excited that this program has been launched. We had a soft launch, and we've already have received 2 inquiries with no advertisement at all. So it's working, and we feel it's very accessible on our webpage, and we will be making a much more public announcement of the program, and hope to get it off and running with the new year. So
Well,
thank you very much.
Thank you and congratulations. All right, next item, matters which council members have asked to be placed on a future agenda. Madam Clerk, did you want to explain the process on this in terms of how we handle something like this?
Pursuant to Council Policy A6, this item is just in order to receive 3 votes from council members in order to bring it to a next agenda for discussion in the staff report.
So there's no discussion on this item, so why don't I immediately ask for, excuse me, Mayor speaking. There's no discussion. We're going to have, see if there are 3 votes. If there are 3 votes, then we will move it forward to agendize to a future meeting. So let me call for any votes.
Oh, public comment.
We don't need to have public comment for this.
Mr. City Attorney, is that correct?
Councilmember Curry, that's correct. Public comment's not required for items placed on the City Council agenda. This is strictly within the prerogative of the City Council.
So may I ask for the excuse me, you haven't been recognized. May I ask for the 3 votes to advance this to a future meeting agenda. This has not been agendized, so we cannot discuss it. That's the Brown Act, that's our A6 policy, which you are very familiar with.
Despite your efforts to
excuse me.
stifle this discussion,
Excuse
it's
me.
on the agenda so we can discuss whether to put it on the agenda.
It is, Mr. City.
That's why, how can
Excuse
people make
me.
a decision to vote
You're out of-
without
you
having
have not been-
discussion?
Excuse me, Mr.
I
Curry.
know this is well
You-
orchestrated,
You
what
have
you're
not
trying-
been recognized.
And
Excuse me.
You can bang the gavel all you
I
want and
will.
go in your little hissy fit like you do sometimes.
Excuse me.
But you're trying to
Excuse
close
me.
off discussion
You're out of
this
order.
matter.
You are out of order, Mr. Curry. Please stop talking. You are out of order.
You are
Please stop
disgracing
talking.
office of mayor.
Mr. Torres or Ms. Brown, would you like to comment on the parliamentary procedure here?
Specifically, do I have the ability to speak to my proposal? As a fact, I do. I'd like to quote the specific part that says... no
Mr.
discussion.
Curry, I've asked for the city clerk and the city attorney to comment on the procedure, please.
Pursuant to Council Policy A6, there really is not supposed to be any discussion on this item because the discussion will occur if it does go forward on the next agenda. So,
All right, so let's have a show of hands. Do you have the necessary 3 votes to carry this forward?
I think you're disgracing the city council.
Seeing none, I think we'll move to the next item. This has not been agendized. You did not receive the necessary votes to
This is
agendize.
Venezuela.
So, Madam Clerk, would you please proceed through the agenda?
public comments on consent calendar. This is the time in which council members may pull items from the consent calendar for discussion, items 1 through 23. Public comments are invited on consent calendar for members of the audience. Speakers must limit comments to 3 minutes. Before speaking, please state your name for the record. If any item is removed from the consent calendar by a council member, members of the public are invited to speak on each item for up to 3 minutes per item. All matters listed under consent calendar are considered to be routine and will all be enacted by one motion in the form listed below. Council members have received detailed staff reports on each of the items recommending an action. There will be no separate discussion of these items prior to the time the City Council votes on the motion unless members of the City Council request specific items to be discussed and are removed from the consent calendar for separate action.
All right, we'll start with Mr. Petros. Any items?
Not to pull, Madam Mayor, but I would make a ingracious plug and just say that I am grateful that the Newport Theater Arts Center building improvements are done. If you haven't gone out and seen a play up off Cliff Drive, please do. It is a wonderful, wonderful place.
Oh, that's great. Mr. Curry?
No items to pull?
Mr. Sellers?
No items.
Mr. Duffield?
Recuse myself on item 15 as I'm a member of Newport Harbor Yacht Club.
And Mayor Pro Tem? And I also will recuse myself on item number 15 as my husband is a member of Newport Harbor Yacht Club. A motion, Mayor Pro Tem.
All right, I'll move the consent calendar items 1 through 23 with recusals on item 15 from Mayor Dixon and Councilman Duffield.
All right, we'll go to the public to speak on any items on the consent calendar. Please come forward.
Thank you, Mayor Dixon and members of the council. My name is Jim Mosier. I didn't understood that out of respect to the absent council member and the possibility that members of the Newport Beach community might be away during the Thanksgiving week, this was going to be a light and non-controversial agenda. So far, it hasn't been quite working out that way, and even without the previous item, with the 1,269-page agenda packet and a plan later in the meeting for adding 1,000 homes to Newport Coast, and a Bayside Drive item that's drawn a very thick packet of comments, I don't think this meets any of those criteria. But of the 23 items that are on the consent calendar, by far the fattest is this item number 5, which is the local coastal implementation plan. I've been dearly wanting to have time to read this, but with the city staff throwing these other little grenades in the path to public engagement, I really have not found time to do that. But I did want to comment that those who are interested should look at the Coastal Commission website in relation to this item for their December meeting, because they posted a couple of days ago another 126 pages or so of reading about this, which are findings the Coastal Commission will be adopting. That it appeared to me, and I haven't had time to read those either, are interpretations on their part of how they expect the city to implement whatever is in here. And since the Coastal Commission will be part of their certification, I would guess that those may have the force of law. So it's probably important to know what those findings are and to review them. And then second consent calendar item I wanted to comment on is item number 3, which is, with this hardly yet adopted, we're already proposing to amend it. And I wanted to call your attention to the actual amendment, which has to do with the Lido House Hotel. We're modifying a table somewhere in here, not quite sure where, and I wanted to point out that that has a footnote to it telling the world that we have a table of how much commercial development you can have in the various areas. And the footnote says you look at the map to find the specific limitation for each coastal district. The map that I've seen circulated actually doesn't have those limits for all the coastal districts, and it appears that what these limits are the default limits when it doesn't say anything. But we were not able to express that clearly here. And if even these 2 lines we can't get straight, I really am concerned about what is in the 500+ pages of this, which I have not yet read. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Any other public comments on the consent calendar? Please come forward. Seeing none. Did we have a second on your motion? All right, let's call for the vote.
Madam Mayor, just a discussion or an observation.
Yes.
It seems that Mr. Mosier will rail us for not meeting frequently enough, like during summertime and in fact during the holidays. And then he will rail us for actually doing the city's business. So I'm actually confused at this point in time.
So noted. All right, let's vote on the consent calendar.
Prior to reading the vote, I'll read the ordinance titles for items 3, 4, and 5. Ordinance number 2016-20, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Newport Beach amending the local coastal program Title 21 of the Newport Beach Municipal Code by increasing the maximum allowable floor area for the Lido House Hotel project located at 3300 Newport Boulevard and 475 32nd Street. Ordinance number 2016-17. An ordinance of the City Council of the City of Newport Beach amending Title 15 of the Newport Beach Municipal Code to adopt amendments to Chapter 1, Division 2 of the 2016 California Building Code designated as the Newport Beach Administrative Code, to adopt the 2016 California Historical Code, the 2016 California Existing Building Code, the 2016 California Green Building Standards Code, and the 2016 California Energy Code, and to adopt the local amendments to the 2015 International Property Maintenance Code, the 2016 edition of the 2016 California Building Code, the 2016 edition of the California Residential Code, the 2016 California Electrical Code, the 2016 California Mechanical Code, and the 2016 California Plumbing Code. Ordinance number 2016-18, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Newport Beach amending Title 9 of the Newport Beach Municipal Code to adopt the 2016 California Fire Code and local amendments. And lastly, ordinance number 2016-19, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Newport Beach adding Title 21 to the Newport Beach Municipal Code and approving the local coastal program implementation plan as modified by the California Coastal Commission. Motion carries unanimously 6-0.
Good job. All right, you may continue.
Okay. Public comments on non-agenda items. Public comments are invited on non-agenda items generally considered to be within the subject matter jurisdiction of the City Council. Speakers must limit comments to 3 minutes. Before speaking, please state your name for the record.
And members of the public who wish to speak on a non-agenda item, please come forward.
Mayor Dixon, members of the council, my name is Joe Stapleton. I have the pleasure of serving as one of your harbor commissioners here in the city of Newport Beach. It's my goal to inform you and members of the public about our informational harbor cruise on December 10th. You may recall 2 years ago, the commission took civic leaders and interested members of the public on a tour in the harbor to point of areas of focus on the current commission. Many of you were in attendance. We hope that you can make it again. Having received many requests to conduct another such tour, the Harbor Commission has convened a special meeting, rain or shine, on Saturday, December 10th at 8:30 in the morning. The meeting will take place in the conference room of the Harbor Department at 1901 Bayside Drive in Corona del Mar. The meeting will quickly be recessed and then reconvened aboard one of the Balboa ferries, waiting dockside with the departure at 9 a.m. promptly. We will tour the harbor over the course of about 2 hours and point out areas of current focus for the Harbor Commission. Some of the items include current Harbor Commission objectives, derelict vessels, fixed marker replacement, RGP 54 implementation, stand-up paddleboard safety, alternative anchorages, Central Avenue Pier, certainly the charter fleet vision that we have leading up to 2020, Mariner's Mile redevelopment, speed limits, lower castaways, launch ramps, cruising guide, fishing on public piers, and of course, anti-fouling bottom paints. So members of the public are welcome. Capacity on the ferry is limited and will be made available on a first-come, first-served basis. Most of us would agree that the harbor here in Newport Beach is one of our greatest assets, and community outreach just like this is so important. We'd ask that you'd please reach out to your constituents and make it public to them so they can attend. Again, the special meeting will take place leaving the Harbor Patrol office 8:30 a.m. on Saturday, December 10th. Please feel free to contact me with any questions. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Any other public comments? Please come forward. Seeing none, all right. We'll have oral reports from City Council on committee activities. We'll start on this side. Mr. Duffield. Mayor Pro Tem. Mr. Selich.
I have none.
Mr. Curry. Mr. Petros.
I know it was yesterday, we hosted a meeting of the Aviation Committee, my last meeting as chair of that committee. And I am delighted to report that the Aviation Committee moved and to support the city's efforts through litigation with the FAA. The Aviation Committee believes that that action will help spur a greater dialogue and possibly through settlement, greater action on defining precisely what the FAA is intending to do. So it was a very deliberate and thoughtful discussion, and I'm delighted to report that they are supporting our efforts.
Well, thank you, and I'm sure there'll be lots of other opportunities coming forward, but thank you for your service as chairing the Aviation Committee. You've done a fine job, so thank you. Mr. Curry. Oh, all right. And I don't have any announcements. All right, let's proceed to public hearing. Item number 24, Newport Coast Annexation and Development Agreement Extension. And Ms. Brand.
Yes, thank you. Good evening, Mayor Dixon, members of the council. I'm Community Development Director Kim Brand, and I want to give you a presentation on this public hearing tonight related to the proposed extension of the Newport Coast Development Agreement. And by the title, it says Newport Coast, but included within Newport Coast is also the Newport Ridge community. So in terms of background, this area was formerly within the County of Orange, and back in 1988, a development agreement was entered into between the County of Orange and the Irvine Company regarding the development of the entire Newport Coast properties. In October of 2000, the City of Newport Beach amended its general plan to include both Newport Coast and Newport Ridge. And then in the following year, in 2001, the city and the county entered into a cooperative agreement. And the purpose of the cooperative agreement was to allow for the county to continue to issue building permits within the future annexation area, consistent with the county entitlements as well as the adopted local coastal program for that area. And that's something the city agreed to do in 2001. And in November 2001, the city and the Irvine Company entered into a development agreement, a 15-year development agreement regarding the Newport Coast and Newport Ridge properties as part of its pre-annexation agreement into the city of Newport Beach. So from this slide, you can see that it's a very large area, and it was a significant annexation. The gold area is Newport Ridge, and then the lighter green area is the Newport Coast area, and the delineation between the two properties, it follows the coastal zone boundaries. So there's several land use regulatory documents that oversee these areas. The first and foremost, of course, is the City of Newport Beach General Plan. And then a companion document to that is the Newport Coast Local Coastal Program, which has a subordinate master coastal development permit, and then a Newport Coast Plan community text, which serves as the zoning designations. And also there is legislation within the California Coastal Resources provisions of the, Public Resources Code that talks about the ability for the County of Orange to continue to administer coastal development permits in this newly annexed area to Newport Beach until such time that Newport Beach wanted to take over the local coastal program administration process. And to date, we have not yet done that. And of course, then there's the Newport Ridge Plant Community Zoning, which takes care of that area that I showed to you, which was in the gold on the exhibit. So in Newport Ridge, the county's original documents approved a maximum of 2,550 dwelling units in that area, as well as a little over 40,000 square feet of commercial area. Our existing numbers, and this is can be, we have some different numbers in different documents. It's whether or not you're looking at lots that were created by the track maps that have been recorded versus actual dwelling units that have been constructed. We have found in these areas that we have lots that have been merged or where homes have taken up 3 to 4 different lots. So there's these numbers are estimates here in terms of the existing, but for the remaining units, we've been estimating there's about 363 units remaining to be built in the Newport Coast Ridge area and about 37,000 square feet of retail area. But again, it's just to remind the council, it's the County of Orange who administers these permits, and they are mandated to maintain the 2,550 units. So in terms of the Irvine Company, because this development agreement extension is with the Irvine Company, they still maintain property ownership in the Newport Ridge area. This is the Newport Ridge Apartments off of San Joaquin Hills Road. And these are the Bordeaux Apartments up off of Bonita Canyon near the 73. In Newport Coast, again, I'll say the same comments that I said earlier in terms of the number of residential units that are remaining to be built. The maximum number of units is 2,600. There are 1,046 hotel rooms that have yet to be developed with a companion square footage number of a little over 900,000 square feet. There's an additional 75,000 square feet of retail, day use retail, that's available to be constructed in Newport Coast, and as well as another 933 square feet for Crystal Cove Promenade, which is down on Coast Highway. So it's important to remember that our general plan recognizes all of these development entitlements, and they have ever since the annexation to the city of Newport Beach from the County of Orange. So none of these entitlements are new to the city. This red area here is the anomaly 60 on our general plan. It's also planning area 13 in the local coastal program and development regulations for this area. And this is where the commercial and hotel rooms are to be constructed. And this is an aerial view of Crystal Cove Promenade. And as I indicated, there's less than 1,000 square feet available to be constructed there. So as I indicated, the cooperative agreement that we have with the County of Orange maintains the land use and building permit authority with the county until such time a planning area is fully developed or that the cooperative agreement is terminated. So the proposed development agreement before you has a 15-year extension, so it would be extended from January 1st, 2013 to 2032, January 1st. The proposed public benefit fees are $5 million due upon the effective date of the development agreement that would be used as a credit towards future building construction in the Newport Coast area. The proposed public benefit fee would be due at the time of building permit issuance, and it would be $10,000 per hotel room or $71,000, $100 per hotel room that is converted to a dwelling unit. And I do want to note that there is a provision within the Newport Coast Local Coastal Program that allows the conversion of the hotel rooms to, I would call, non-transient occupancies, and whether they're called accommodations or dwelling units, the intent is that we wouldn't be able to collect transient occupancy tax. So if you were to assume that all 1,046 hotel rooms were built, the total benefit to the city would be $10,460,000. And so with that, I will conclude my presentation. I do want to note that I distributed a supplemental a memorandum to you that included some corrections to some of the dates that were in both the adopting ordinance and the proposed development agreement. And we did receive a comment letter prior to the meeting this afternoon indicating that there were some references that were incorrect in the development agreement. Mr. Mosier was kind enough to point those out, and we will make those corrections for the second reading should the City Council wish to adopt this development agreement. And I do know that there's representatives from the Irvine Company here who I anticipate will want to make some comments to the council as well.
All right, thank you very much. Do we want to go right to your comments? Please come forward.
Thank you. Mayor, members of the council, Dan Miller representing the Irvine Company. Just to clarify what Mr. Mosier brought up, it's not a new 1,000 units. They're already in the general plan and they're already in the LCP of Newport Coast, so these are existing units. Just to put this in context, why this came about, there was a desire by the city to annex this area. There was a desire by the Irvine Company and the county to retain the county planning process because it was a county LCP. So what is before you is an extension of that kind of agreement to allow the city to annex it but still retain the county's planning authority because it was their LCP. And of course the city, for that 15 years, while it was still under the county's jurisdiction for planning purposes, received all the benefits of that annexation. Property taxes, sales taxes, hotel taxes. It received all the infrastructure, both private and public improvements, fire station, roads, parks, open space. And we met all those obligations under that DA. So today is an extension of that DA, and we're not asking for any intensity increase, leaving all the requirements of the existing DA as they are. This, basically what we're asking for tonight is that as a compromise, even though we believe we're paying twice because you're adding fees per unit, if and when we can develop those. And the only thing we object to, we'll agree to that, but the objection that we have is section 5.2, we'd like that removed from the DA. You're asking us to pay upfront on an extension when the fact is that the many obstacles to actually use these units is over a longer period of time. And also from the standpoint that we believe we've already basically given you public benefits through this annexation. One of the other benefits you got is we got the Irvine Ranch Water District, who basically covered this area to allow them to continue to cover that area, but they basically made a payment to the city of $20 million for them to retain their jurisdiction. I do want to address some issues at in the staff report. The staff report states, should the agreement not be extended, the city would be able to terminate the cooperative agreement with the county pursuant to its terms. To clarify, the cooperative agreement requires the city provide 1 year advance notice before the cooperative agreement can be terminated. Since that has not been done, you can do it if you terminate it now. The cooperative agreement will go on for an additional 5 years through the end of 2021. Specifically, under Section 7.1 of the cooperative agreement, the agreement shall continue in full force and effect with respect to Newport Coast for a period of 5 years and shall continue in full force and effect thereafter until all entitlement granted by the development approvals has been completed. And according to Government Code Section 51302, the term of the contract shall not exceed 5 years but may continue for a period of 5 years unless the city basically continues and gives us 1 year. So this is going to go on for 5 years anyway, the cooperative agreement. The other point in the staff report is that upon termination of the cooperative agreement, the county would transfer back to the city the permitting and development review authority for the remaining unbuilt development potential in Newport Ridge and Newport Coast. the statement is incorrect. Even if the cooperative agreement was terminated, and again, there was special legislation, a Senate bill that basically also encapsulated all of these, the intent of what was going on here. The county's LCP will still govern, and that is what is applicable for this area. So basically what has to happen is, until you basically create an LCP for Newport Coast, the city's LCP, which is basically what you just approved is your LCP, you take the county's LCP and you merge it, change it, do whatever, which is another process you go through, city and on the Coastal Commission, and you know how long that takes. So basically what the situation is that there are two measurements here. You have to accomplish both. Give us the notice, that's 5 years, plus approve a new LCP for the coast, which is basically merged into your existing LCP. Therefore, terminating the cooperative agreement alone will not have any impact because it's 5 years plus. And the key point of that is that if you have this development agreement without Section 5.2, and we move forward within this 5+ years to develop and use any of those units, then we'll pay the fee. Without the development agreement, we can move forward because the county is the development land use agency, and we will not have to pay you any fees. I think that the other important parts is absent an LCP, and again, I'm talking about a Newport LCP for Newport Coast. City cannot take localized actions that are inconsistent with the county's LCP because the LCP embodies state law, goes back to that state legislation. Further, the city cannot change the general plan or zoning documents for Newport Coast because it cannot terminate the cooperative agreement for at least 5 years. So while you can change your general plan for this area, it would not basically be Newport Coast would not be impacted because of these particular agreements that exist today. So what I'm asking for is approve the DA as is with the exception of Section 5.2. And I'll be available to answer any questions.
Thank you. Ms. Brown, do you want, and Mr. Torres, if you, between the two of you, and Mr. Kiff, do you want to respond to Mr. Miller's comments, please?
Mayor Dixon, why don't I start off and then I'll let Mr. Torres augment my comments. I do want to respectfully disagree with at least one comment that Mr. Miller made, and it's respect to the city's ability to terminate the cooperative agreement and have the city's building permit and zoning entitlement process be returned back to the city of Newport Beach. We believe that that can be terminated consistent with the government code and consistent with the cooperative agreement. But should that occur, and we're not recommending that occur this evening, we're just as an alternative in the future, we believe that we would be able to administer the city's general plan and zoning how it is adopted at the time a building permit is issued. So if the development agreement is not extended, that gives the city council the ability to amend its general plan, amend the zoning in the Newport Coast or the Newport Ridge area pursuant to the normal processes that we go through for a general plan amendment. And then if the case were to be that we had not yet obtain administrative authority for the Newport Coast LCP in terms of going through the Coastal Commission and gaining that authority, we still believe that the county would be unable to issue a local coastal or a coastal development permit that was inconsistent with the city's general plan and zoning, because ultimately it's the city who would be issuing the building permit. Because similar to what happens today, until we have our certified LCP, people come to our counter, we issue what's called an approval in concept, and approval in concept means it's consistent with our general plan, consistent with our zoning. They go to the Coastal Commission with that approval in concept, and then they issue a coastal development permit that's consistent, one, with the local coastal program as well as the approval in concept. So those to us are the mechanisms that would move forward in the event we were to terminate the cooperative agreement. the city were to amend its general plan and zoning, so it's different than the county's LCP, and we had not yet retained that authority. So those are a lot of what ifs, what could happen in the future, and I don't know that that's necessarily where we have to have every single step measured down the what if paths, but we are confident that the city would be able to amend its general plan, amend its zoning, and terminate the cooperative agreement if that were the desire of the city council.
Mr. Torres.
And Mayor Dixon, just to add on to that, I think Ms. Brandt actually explained it pretty well. But the keystone here is the development agreement. If the development agreement goes away, the city can amend its general plan. And again, staff's not recommending this, but this was brought up and you've asked us to address it. If the development agreement goes away, the city may amend its general plan to withdraw or amend or otherwise change any of the existing entitlements in Newport Coast. The city could also start the process to terminate the cooperative agreement, and the city can also take over LCP responsibility. Again, that all takes time, but all of that's within the city's discretion.
All right. Any other comments from staff? All right. Any other comments? Did you want to respond to that?
Just that they have to reference the state legislation. It preempts the city because the Coastal Commission, LCP, preempts whatever the city does in changing their general plan. They can change their general plan, but again, the Newport Coast, LCP, because it's approved by a state body, the Coastal Commission preempts whatever they do, whatever the city does. So again, you got to reference the state legislation. You have to go and amend the legislation if you want to do that.
Mr. Torres, do you want to respond to that?
Mayor Dixon, I guess I don't want to engage in a back and forth. We just respectfully disagree with the speaker. The coastal plan and the city's general plan are two different documents. The coastal plan itself doesn't give any type of entitlements. That's what the general plan does. Now, the coastal plan should be consistent with the general plan. So if the city does amend its general plan, then the county, as long as it has jurisdiction, should also amend its LCP to be consistent with the city's general plan so the two entitlements chime with each other. But again, that I understand there's a disagreement with the speaker, and that's at least the city's perspective.
Okay, very good. All right. Well, why don't I come back to council? Any comments here from council before we put it out to the public? No? Any other public comments on this matter?
Mayor Dixon and members of the City Council, my name is Jim Mosier. I put most of what I wanted to say about this in writing. The main point I would want to make is I think it's irresponsible for the City Council or the Planning Commission or anybody else connected with the city to do anything about Newport Coast before having a very thorough refresher course on how the Planning Authority and these many overlapping documents affect planning in that area. And I think the information about that should be coming not from the Irvine Company, but from representatives of the county and the Coastal Commission, who are the ones ultimately who interpret and understand those documents. To one of Mr. Miller's points about the state legislation, it was a little confusing. I was referring to a couple of them, but one of them is reproduced on page 2487 of your packet here, and I think if you look at that yourself, certainly the plain English reading of it appears to be that the City of Newport Beach has the option either of coming up with its own local coastal program for Newport Coast or taking over the county one. So I'm not quite sure that we have to start from scratch on that, or that would be a long process. In addition to what I put in writing, the first question I really had for the city staff, and it just occurred to me on the way over here, is whether our city's Newport Coast Advisory Committee has been asked to weigh in on the merits of this proposal, and if so, what their recommendation was. If nothing else, that highlights the great fog of mystery that hangs over everything related to Newport Coast, because I looked up what the mandate of the Newport Coast Advisory Committee was, and from what I could read of it, the committee was to last just 6 years, yet the city clerk seems to still have it on the books. And I've repeatedly heard the city manager say that that committee goes on in perpetuity. It's certainly, though, whatever their longevity, one of their requirements is to advise this committee on, or this council, on anything related to Newport Coast, and without that recommendation, I don't know how you can go ahead. What I'm really concerned about, though, is this claimed conversion of hotel rooms into residences or dwelling units. We've heard from the same city staff that there's a provision in our general plan that allowed that in Newport Center. I've never been able to find that provision. We now heard that there's a provision in the local coastal program. I have not been able to find it. Rather than just saying it's in there, it would be helpful to point out where it is in there. And even if it is, we heard that our general plan is the supreme document over that, and there's no provision in our general plan that allows that. And in fact, our city charter would not allow such a provision to be in there, because the green light initiative that the people of Newport Beach put in place would require these residences to be counted. So my real question is how the city staff is interpreting this extension, and if this is yet another ploy that would allow the Irvine Company to add still more residences that the public has not seen in the general plan that the public approved without those counting towards the green light total. My time is up. Thank you.
Thank you. And any other comments from the public, please come forward. Seeing none, we'll come to council. Mr. Muldoon.
Thank you. Mr. Torres, I just want to make sure I understand this correctly and what the possibilities are. In your opinion, is Mr. Miller's statement accurate that if we were to not continue this agreement, they still have 5 years remaining, if I'm understanding that correctly, and if they do so before, if they decide to build before the amending of the GP and zoning, eliminating the possibility under the development agreement, that they would be able to build still and that the city would get nothing?
Mayor Pro Tem Muldoon, there's a couple questions in there, and it's really a question of timing and what the city does. If the question is, if the city doesn't change its general plan and all the entitlements are left there, could the Irvine Company build and then not pay the city? I think the answer is yes, because then there wouldn't be a development agreement with public benefits fees in place. However, if the city were to change its general plan and take away some of those entitlements, then obviously the answer would be no. They could not build, because then the entitlement wouldn't be there. In terms of the question of the 5 years, there is a provision about how much notice we have to give in advance in the renewal periods. But again, that's all predicated on what the city does with its general plan, because the cooperative agreement is all premised on the fact there's still development out there in Newport Coast, and that's what the county would be issuing the permits for. If the city were to take away that entitlement and that development potential, there would be nothing for the county to actually issue permits for, because there would be nothing left to build. So again, it's a multifaceted question you asked there, and it all depends on timing and what the city does.
Mr. Sellers. Okay. So we are, any other comments or questions up here in terms of next steps? So we essentially, Mr. Torres, I'll seek your counsel on this. So we have a proposed agreement that one party to the agreement does not agree with. So our choice is to...
So Madam Mayor, the development agreement is voluntary. So if the Irvine Company is not agreeing to it, then we cannot force them to enter into the agreement. And if that's the case, the options are to take no action tonight, in which case their existing development agreement will expire on January 1st of 2017, or the City Council could take an action to deny the application for the development agreement extension at this time because the applicant is not in support of it.
All right, so if we took no action...
If you take no action, the development agreement will expire on its own terms on January 1st.
So do we require a motion to do that, or just...
No, if you're going to take no action, you don't even have to do a motion.
Do I have a sense of the council? All right. Okay, so we will take no action. All right, thank you. Next item is number 25, 191 Riverside Avenue, Land Use and Zoning Amendments. Ms. Brand, Mr. Alford.
Yes, Mayor Dixon, members of the City Council, Patrick Alford, Planning Program Manager. The item before you is a set of land use and zoning amendments and a negative declaration. This is for a property located in the Mayor's Mile Commercial District, specifically at 191 Riverside Drive. The amendments would change the general plan, and the local coastal program and the zoning code to change the property from public facilities, or PF, to mixed-use Mariners Mile. So essentially changing the designation similar to the, probably same as the land use and zoning designations on the surrounding properties. This is the project site highlighted in blue. A little orientation, here's a different perspective. We have the Newport Heights community to the northeast and west, and Cliff Drive Park. And the commercial area surrounding, we have the BMW dealership, Mariners Center, and the Mariners Mile Square shopping center. You'll probably hear from applicant and perhaps others about the relationship of the property with the Mariners Center, and that area is shown here in green. It is true that the property is under the same ownership, and they share a driveway. However, this is a separate legal parcel, and as such, it could develop independently from the Mariners Center if it was be sold or otherwise detached from that area. As we said, we have negative declaration. The negative declaration found there were no potentially significant impacts. We had a public review period going from September to October of this year. We received comments from the Newport residents, SPAWN, and 2 Native American groups. The Plan Commission received these letters and comments and found that they presented no substantial evidence of significant environmental impacts or new required mitigation measures. The issues associated with the amendment include land use compatibility and property development, specifically traffic, parking, and height. And the issue of land use and general plan consistency. The general plan calls for a pedestrian-oriented mixed-use village in this village area of Mariners Mile. And as you can see from the adjacent land uses, that the change to mixed use would be a continuation of the land uses plan from the abutting and adjacent parcels. We conducted analysis under Charter Section 423. As you know, if you exceed any of the thresholds, that a vote of the public would be required for the general plan amendment. The total increases would be 13 dwelling units, 14,369 square feet of commercial, and we have peak hour trips AM of 65.44 and 91.93. However, these do not exceed the thresholds established by Charter Section 423, so a vote would not be required for this amendment.
Mr. Alford,
Yes.
if I could interrupt, you did this analysis using the maximums that would be available under the general plan and the zoning. There is not a discrete project yet proposed. This is to check the box, if you will.
That's correct. I'll get into that a little further in the presentation, but that's true. We did this under a maximum development scenario, which they could achieve on the site by our zoning code. So, getting right to development potential. As we said, no development is proposed at this time. However, potentially, the site could accommodate, by the zoning code, 10 to 13 dwelling units, and roughly 5,663 to 11,326 square feet of commercial. That represents the minimum amount of commercial that they have of the mixed-use project, and the maximum could be developed either under a mixed-use project or a standalone project. A site development review would be required for any mixed-use project and for any non-residential project that is over 10,000 square feet in floor area. In terms of traffic, we took a look at the credits for the existing post office and against that maximum development potential, and we found it to be a net increase of 297 average daily trips. However, we determined to be no significant impacts to nearby intersections and no significant impacts to Riverside Drive. In terms of parking, the site has 20 spaces. Under the zoning code, under the current PF zoning district, there's no parking standards established by use permit. And under the maximum potential under the proposed zoning, it would require 46 spaces for commercial, 26 for the residential, for a total of 72 spaces. However, as we indicated, there would be a discretionary process for any significant residential, or mixed use or non-residential project. All new development would have to meet current off-street parking requirements. If the existing building was to be reused, as long as they stayed at with leases that have a parking requirement of less 250 square feet, one space per area, 250 square feet or less, that would comply with the zoning code, so they could basically introduce those uses without providing additional parking. That presents a potential on paper shortfall of 17 spaces. In terms of height, the existing post office is approximately 20 feet high. Under the existing PF district, again, there's no height standards established by use permit. However, it is in the shoreline height limitation zone, so there is a 35-foot maximum. Under the proposed Mariners Mile mixed use district, the height would be 26 feet for a flat roof or 31 feet for a sloped roof. This shows the existing building, and the area in blue shows how basically it could achieve the 26-foot height limit, and they'll give a rough idea on how much larger it would be over the existing development. So if the council approves the amendments tonight, it would go on to second reading on December 13th, and then submittal of the LCP amendment to the California Coastal Commission. That concludes my presentation. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
All right, thank you. Any questions up here before we go out to the public? Seeing none, any member of the public wishes to speak, please come forward on this matter.
Good evening, Mayor Dixon and Mayor Pro Tem Muldoon and members of the City Council. I'm Susan Horry of Manat, Phelps and Phillips, representing the applicant, Mariners Center M2. I wanted to just make a couple of brief remarks. First of all, I would like to thank staff and especially Pat Elford for the work that he's done. And he's done a very thorough analysis, and I think that his presentation tonight provides you with a good summary of the proposed action before you, which is a land use and zoning amendment to implement the vision that was in your general plan. The staff sorted through a lot of information, and as you saw from the presentation, conducted traffic analysis, parking analysis, and environmental analysis, and they also visited the site in order to prepare its recommendation to approve the amendments. In addition, this application comes to you tonight with a recommendation for approval from the Planning Commission. The Planning Commission reviewed the materials, and many of the commissioners actually visited the site and walked it with us prior to voting to recommend the approval to the council. As I mentioned, the action before you tonight is a land use and zoning change. There is no development, no proposed development being proposed. This comes out of the 2006 voter-approved general plan. The general plan called for the revitalization of Mariners Mile, and the application before you tonight enables the revitalization by changing the use from public facility to mixed use and implements the vision that was described in the general plan to change the land use and zoning for this half-acre parcel to mixed use to make the land use and zoning consistent with the adjacent parcels. I think Patrick showed you the zoning map of the site and how this little public facility corner really is, this amendment would basically make that zoning consistent and the land use consistent with the surrounding commercial development. The amendment also implements the general plan policy that calls for a mix of uses along Riverside to serve the upland residential area. I'd like to make clear, as I mentioned in my beginning of the remarks, that there is no proposed development project before you tonight. This is simply a general plan, land use amendment, and zoning amendment that also requires Coastal Commission approval. No demolition or no construction is proposed at this time. Any future development, as Patrick mentioned, will require discretionary approval by the city, and that was an important fact that the Planning Commission wanted to make clear at its hearing. Also in your staff report that you have, you'll note that in addition to the comments that were received on the negative declaration, responses have been provided to those comments as well for the record. You know, when this proposal first came before you in 2014, the building was still occupied by the post office, and there was great concern concerning its future. But a lot has changed since then, and we're happy to say that the post office is still in Mariner Center, and it has a long-term lease. Oh, sorry.
Please continue.
But the relocation now leaves a vacant building on a very visible corner in the city in need of revitalization. This amendment provides the opportunity to bring new vitality to the old post office building in that corner. The owner, Gary Jabara, brings the necessary commitment, energy, and resources to revitalize this property. As Patrick mentioned, the applicant also owns the adjacent parcels, and as many of you know, is completing a major renovation of the adjacent commercial center. And when the dust settles, I think that you will all be very pleased with the type of commercial village atmosphere that's going to be there. So in order for the community enhancement to take place, we ask the council tonight to approve the requested zone change, coastal land use plan amendment, and general plan amendment to enable this parcel to be repurposed for a mix of uses. With me tonight is Mr. Jabara and our team of technical experts if you have any specific questions about specifically the parking. One of the things I did want to mention was that Patrick showed a slide that talked about the 17-space shortfall on the existing site if the post office building were to be repurposed for commercial uses. Your staff report also includes a parking analysis. We looked at the entire site. As we mentioned, the entire site is under one ownership. And a total of 122 spaces would be required, which also includes the 17-space shortfall that Patrick mentioned. There are 126 spaces that are available. There is also a reciprocal easement agreement that allows the parcel on which the post office building is currently located to utilize the excess parking on the other parcels. So in fact, there is sufficient parking on that site with the reciprocal easement agreement that covers that property. So I did want to mention that in reality, because of the reciprocal easement agreement, we no longer have a 17-space shortfall. So with that, as I mentioned, we're happy to respond to any questions that the council may have and request your approval of the amendments tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Salich.
Thank you, Mayor. When this was up before us about almost 3 years ago now, I know that I voted against it at that time because we were trying to preserve the post office, and I think we gave the applicant initial direction to secure a permanent post office there, which he has now done. It's under a long-term lease. And so to me, it makes sense to do the mixed-use zoning. It's what the surrounding uses are of the property. It's under one ownership. He does have to come back for a site plan review for anything he proposes to do on it. If there are any issues with parking or anything else, it can be dealt with at that time. And so, I think it should be pointed out that he's doing a good job remodeling the rest of Mariner Center there. In fact, he's done something very unusual that most people don't do. They're trying to add square footage. He's actually removed some of the square footage in Mariner Center to create more pedestrian-friendly environment there. So I'd like to support the Planning Commission's recommendation and the action in the staff report.
I'd second that.
No, we're not finished with it. No. Did you want to make a comment, a question of the speaker? No, okay. Thank you. We'll open it up for public comment.
Mayor Dixon and members of the council, my name is Jim Mosier. The Newport Beach City Council has so many policies that I'm not sure the council is aware of all their policies. One of them, I think I have the number correct, is policy A18, that is about the processing of general plan amendments, which is this request is for. One aspect of that policy, which I think is a wise one, is that it encourages, because the general plan is an important document that we don't want to just tinker with willy-nilly, it recommends that when there is a request for a general plan amendment, that it come together with a proposal for a specific project so that the public knows what the applicant wanting the general plan to be changed expects to use that change for. We have heard over and over here, as if it was a good thing, that we are going to leave completely open what the change can be used for. When this was before the Planning Commission, the rumor was, and I thought we heard from the applicant, that their plan was not to use it for mixed use, which is what they're asking for, but instead to convert the existing post office building into some kind of boutique market. I strongly support, first I strongly support the policy because I see no reason to rush into changing the general plan until we know what the change is going to be used for. I can't see any possible urgency. Why do they need the general plan designation to be changed if they're not planning to do something with it? So we can wait until that time comes, and if it indeed is a non-mixed use boutique market application that they want to put in there, I strongly recommend the alternative recommendation of Planning Commissioners Dunlap and Wygand, that the appropriate general plan amendment for that would be to change it to general commercial, which, as they pointed out, is the same as the adjoining corners. And if you're going to have mixed use, it seems more logical it would be off the street in the back where it's already zoned for that. So those are my comments. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Please come forward. Any other public comments on this item? Seeing none, Mr. Petros.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just again, a response. While A18 does have that as a recommendation, that is certainly not a requirement of our policy. I would like to, and I'm kind of mad at you, Ed. You kind of took my thunder there. I just want to recount what's happened over time since 2014. Yes, in 2014, this was before us. Those were different circumstances and a different environment. The greatest concern of the public up in the Heights, at least, was the loss of the post office, or the potential loss of the post office. And at that time, we were told that, in fact, there would be a long-term lease that was signed into that. I followed that, and I know just how hard it was to get that lease put together. It was moving the rock up the hill with the federal government to get that lease in there. And yet, Mr. Jabara did, in fact, sign that lease. He kept his word. When it comes to the revitalization of Mariners Center at that time, we were told that it would be a beautiful piece of architecture and something that would draw the public in. And in fact, as you note, a reduction in intensity on the site. And for months, there were renderings placed outside the facility that showed what it would look like. And I'm happy to support, or to report, that Mr. Jabara, again, kept his word. He's doing what he intended to do. I am hopeful that that is a pattern that we're going to see with this property, that this will, in fact, become a place that folks in the Heights, my neighbors and I, can walk down the hill to and enjoy Bone. We can enjoy the new retail opportunities there, and maybe pick up a sandwich if that's what we're going to do, and head back up into the park. I am very supportive of this, and as such, I will move the action to support the general plan amendment and zoning amendment.
It's already been moved by
need
Councilmember
to-
No,
Selleck.
he supported it. I moved it.
Do you accept that?
He wants the credit all.
And who will be seconding?
I'll second it.
He
yeah.
second.
I'll second it.
Oh, Mr. Duffield did. All right, no other comments? Let's go for the vote.
For reading the vote, I'll read the ordinance title for ordinance number 2016-22, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Newport Beach approving a zoning code and local coastal program amendment for property located at 191 Riverside Avenue. Councilmember Selleck. The motion carries unanimously, 6-0.
All right, moving forward to item number 26, establishment of fees for coastal development permit applications. Community Development, Ms. Brandt.
Yes, Mayor Dixon, members of the council. Well, I'm actually very pleased to be coming before you and asking to establish a fee for a coastal development permit. you have given second reading to the implementation plan, which means that now we have a complete implementation plan and local land use plan together, which means we have a local coastal program. And once the executive director signs off on the action that you've taken this evening, we will have the authority to issue permits. And therefore, we do need to also have a fee go with those applications to recover our staff time. So what we have before you is very simply two fees. One is a deposit account. We prefer to have a flat fee, but absent having the experience of processing coastal development permits, we felt that it would be more accurate for our applicants, and we will track our time over the next year to see what our actual time spent will be and come back with a flat fee. So we're recommending a deposit of $2,500. If we need more money, we'll ask for it. If we use less, we'll refund it. And then we're also recommending a flat fee for coastal development permit waivers, and I will turn to Patrick because the amount of the fee is, Patrick? Is it 900? How much is for the waiver?
Oh, I'm sorry. $910.
I'm sorry. Team effort here.
Okay.
So that's what we're asking for from you this evening, and we'll be happy to answer any questions.
All right, any questions up here before we turn it to the public? All right, let's open it up for public comment.
Mayor Dixon and members of the council, my name is Jim Mosher. I have three comments about this, maybe the last item I comment on tonight. Comment one, looking at page 26-2 of your staff report, first line says that on November 8th, the City Council approved its first local coastal program. I strongly differ with that. As we just heard, on November 8th, what you did is introduce it for discussion. It was tonight that it was approved. The second comment I want to make is about the paragraph that follows that. In the last sentence of that paragraph, it assures the public that CDP decisions may also be appealed or called for review to the City Council. We get that. Could the staff perhaps clarify this for us, whether these decisions made by the City Council can be appealed to the Coastal Commission, and in how much of the city that would be true? Third comment I had, more germane perhaps to the subject of this, is the resolution itself on page 26-4 says that the firm MGT of America was retained in 2010 and came up with the estimate for the waiver fee of $910.04. I have trouble understanding how in 2010 it could have been determined that a waiver was going to cost exactly $910.04 when this company doing the evaluation had no implementation plan before it and had no idea what the procedure for a waiver would be. So is that a typographical error? Did they actually make that estimate in 2010? And where does that number come from? And what is the city doing with the $910 to issue a waiver? Thank you.
Thank you. Staff, do you want to respond to any of those points?
Yes, the MGT study that was commenced back in 2010 came up with an hourly rate of the $198, which then was used to factor into the flat fee that we're recommending. So that is the basis for the recommendation.
Okay. Any other public comments? Please come forward. Coming back to council, Mr. Curry.
I would move approval of the recommended actions.
Any second? Second. Let's call for the vote.
And I have no ordinance title to read.
Okay.
The motion carries unanimously, 6-0.
All right, moving to item number 27, Lido Fire Station number 2 replacement, approval of professional services agreement with WLC Architects. And we have Public Works here.
Madam Mayor
Yes.
and council members, the next two items, again, are our items that tend to be greater than $500,000. Otherwise, we would put these on the consent calendar. We would welcome your questions. We're prepared to have a staff report if you'd like to have one. If you would not, that's the reason it's on current business.
Do I see Mr. Curry? Did you want to make a comment?
Second.
All right, let's call for the motion. No staff discussion. Oh, public
comment.
Moving too fast. Public comment, please, come forward. This is on 27 Lido Fire Station number 2. Any public comments? Seeing none? All right, we have a motion and a second, and we will call for the vote.
Motion carries unanimously, 6-0.
All right, moving on. Similarly, item number 28, Arches Diversion Project, approval of professional services agreement.
Same comments from staff, Madam Mayor.
And I'll move the action.
All right, any public comments? Seeing none, call for the vote.
Motion carries unanimously, 6-0.
Very good. All right, number 29, review of conceptual street layout alternatives for Bayside Drive between East Coast Highway and Jamboree Road and Marine Avenue.
So this
Madam
one's
Mayor?
not so, it's not, oh, sorry.
Excuse me, Dave. Madam Mayor?
Yes?
I have to recuse myself from this item since I own a home on Bayside Drive, so I will remove myself from the dais and go to the little kids' room.
All right, have fun. Okay, Mr. Webb.
Yes, good evening, Mayor, council members. We have the privilege to bring this item to you tonight. First of all, I want to introduce Brad Summers. He's our senior traffic engineer who will be doing most of the legwork on this tonight. Also, Tony Bryan, our traffic engineer, is in the audience if you have any detailed questions, and Mark Avoyevich is back here, our deputy director. We've all been involved in this project and would like to help with this presentation. So starting off, I'm going to go with some background, if we can kind of gear in why we're here tonight. Currently, we're talking about Bayside Drive between Coast Highway and Jamboree and Marine Avenue. And this portion of the Bayside Drive was built in the mid-'70s. It's also had major pavement rehabilitations over the years. The last one is in 1990. We've done a couple slurries since then, but the structural rehabilitations were back in the 90s. This roadway segment provides access to the adjacent neighborhoods, Harbor Drive, Balboa Island, and Corona Del Mar. It also serves as a bypass to Coast Highway at times because you can go in both directions there. The other unique nature of this, it's one of 2 4-lane arterials in our city that actually has fronting houses on it. As you're familiar with Bayside Drive, the other one's Irvine Avenue. Up there we have houses that front it. And our pavement management plan now calls out that we're due for major pavement renovation on this, and that typically what we're talking about would be something like we're doing MacArthur. We're going to grind off an inch or 2 of the pavement, fix all the potholes in areas that are failing, and then put on a new overlay cap on it. And we will be using rubberized pavement on this, which is a quieter pavement. So that's the major pavement coming up. It also, the signal at Marine Avenue and Jamboree and Bayside is rather old. It's due for renovation. In this case, we need to do all new heads, wires, some of the poles have to be redone, some major work on that. So the timing's right to look at this street. Our process as we get into these major renovations is we want to look at the street because these things were built in the 70s and function all these years. We want to see how they're functioning. Times change. So we do know that Bayside Drive is a scenic route. We do know that the neighborhood access, it has access to the retail centers. It also provides access to Balboa Island, as I said, towards the peninsula. But Bayside Drive's also changed over the years. It's a very heavy bicycle traveled route, and it has a lot of pedestrians on it. It's actually the end of the Mountains to Sea Trail that goes through Orange County. It's also used in the summer as a primary route for the junior lifeguards, has a lot of junior lifeguards on it. And as we just completed our bicycle master plan, it was one of the priority projects in there identified for bike lane extensions. There are some bike lanes you can see in this picture here, but we need to extend them in certain areas. So furthermore, we talked about the needs of this project. We really do need to address the pavement on it. It's getting to that point where it's failing. There are curb and sidewalk repairs that we need to address. And I'd stop on that because one of our comments later on is we don't have all the costs figured out on this project. This is at a concept level. We're starting to put the pieces together. But one of the items is we talked to one of the neighborhood associations right here. A lot of this decorative concrete is broken and cracked. And it's really not in our cost estimate yet. We haven't figured that out, but it will be included hopefully as we go forward. So that'll be an added cost. I think we can get into that. We also have the signal renovation, and we'd like to do striping and signage cleanup on here as part of the project. So We did reach out. Staff's done a lot of research, and I'm going to turn that over to Brad in a minute on what the staff would do on this. We've looked at all kinds of background on what we might want to do. We also reached out to the residents that staff's going to talk a little bit about too. But what we've heard over the years and was confirmed by talking to the residents is there's a speeding issue and an accident reduction issue on here. We've had several accidents, probably higher than most four-lane arterials, and the people tend to speed on this street. We also know we need to complete the pedestrian and bicycle links, and some good comments were made by the associations. We've got some good recommendations for improving the mobility of the street, particularly the PEDS bikes, and then also reducing the feel of the street. If you're familiar with this street, it's a big wide open asphalt plain. Again, without any kind of medians on it. It's got a big feel to it, and it runs with relatively low traffic through a residential area. So we think we can reduce the urban feel, add some beautification. That was one of the things. And landscape medians came up, and we'll talk about that in the future. So with that, I think what I'll do is I'm going to turn it over to Brad Summers, and he's going to go through some of the detailed information that he provided, also what he found in some of his review and background, and then we'll get into some recommendations for you.
Yeah, thank you. Again, I'm Brad Summers. I'm a senior civil engineer in the Public Works Department, and I've been fortunate enough to be the project manager working through the concepts as well as the outreach for the Bayside Drive Improvement Project. Of course, Dave went through the needs, some concerns, as well as some of the background, and of course, every engineering project starts with numbers. So we'll go ahead and get through that. Starting out, we did provide counts or take counts in August so we could get the summer months. And what we came up with was about 14,000 ADT, that's average daily trips. That's kind of your typical summer weekday, both directions of travel, all the cars on the road. And just for comparison, that's relatively light because we're actually looking at other secondary four-lane arterials, such as Dover Drive, Irvine Avenue, which may carry as much as 26,000, almost twice what we're seeing out here. We also took a look at the peak hour counts. This is going to be the peak hour throughout the day. We get about 1,100 cars on Bayside Drive, again, both directions. And when we kind of take that out and calculate our utilization, we're looking about 17% of the roadway capacity is being used as a four-lane facility. As far as our bicycle and pedestrian counts, Dave did mention, this is a scenic corridor. We do get quite a few pedestrians taking advantage of the beautiful vistas of the bay there, as well as walking to Balboa Island, the other uses along the way. And then what always triggers my interest, of course, is that we have a very high number of cyclists on this corridor. You know, looking at almost 60 during the AM peak hour is significant for a four-lane, again, secondary arterial. This is more than we would expect to see, say, on Irvine Avenue, Dover Drive, even Balboa Boulevard in some instances. As for vehicle speeds, we pulled some data from our speed survey. Just to talk about that real quick, the city does create a speed survey. It's used to set speed limits throughout the city. We do radar surveys of most streets. And with this, the roadway is actually divided about midway between two different speed zones. The westerly section, Coast Highway to about the pedestrian traffic signal, we have a 45 mile per hour measured 85th, that's the free flow speed, which is then reduced down to a 40 mile an hour speed limit. And then the easterly section, we actually measured about 40 mile an hour as the free flow speed, and that's been reduced down to 35. Now, when I say reduce, state law allows us in certain circumstances to reduce from the free flow speed or the 85th percentile 5 miles per hour. And in this case, we were able to do that using what would be unknown to the motorists traveling there of a history of speed-related incidents as well as heavy pedestrian and bicycle use.
Brad, can I just ask a question? The
Sure.
2011 speed survey, so is that the survey of actual cars on Bayside? Or is that some documented standard?
2011 is our last published speed survey. So that's
by
when,
the city?
Yeah, done by the city. Now, just to clarify, the counts were actually done in August of 2014 when we began looking at the link.
Okay.
But the speed survey, and there haven't been many changes out there, so these speeds are still relevant today.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
And Brad, I think it's important to note that while the 85th percentile is 5 miles an hour over, that means that 15% of the traffic is traveling in excess of that.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, and I guess that's a good point here in our table. We do show that the observed high speed while we were out there surveying was actually 54 in the faster segment. So that's a good 15 miles an hour over the posted speed limit. As far as accident history, we calculated the last 3 years, and we were able to pull that information from our police department. We ended up with about 27 incidents. This is between Coast Highway and the Jamboree Marine intersection, with about 19 injuries. The top primary collision factor, which is what the investigating officer would attribute the incident to, was speeding, with 10 incidents related to that, as well as 3 injuries. And then again, another thing that jumped out at me was the 9 incidents that involved cyclists, but of course that's attributed to the high number of cyclists traveling on this roadway. I wanted to focus in a little bit. When we started looking at this and talking to residents, we received some real concerns from the residents. There are actually 19 homes that front Bayside Drives. That means they take direct access off there. In this picture, we're actually looking at the homes that are part of the Promontory Bay community. And through here, in this segment between Harbor Island and Promontory Drive East, we actually noted 12 reported incidents, and of which 2 of these left the roadway, collided with parked cars, into the landscaping, in some circumstances into the homes. And as we talked to these residents and then others along the communities here, I think there was a common note that not all the incidents are reported. So what we're showing here are incidents that were actually, the police department was called out, they took a report. It seems that we've heard of more incidents out here that may have been non-injury, or for whatever reason, the police department did not take a report, so there may actually be more in the situation. Part of our attributing, or what we've attributed some of this incidents where the roadways are leaving, or excuse me, the cars are leaving the roadway. You can see in this picture again, we have this kind of natural curvature here, the wide open asphalt feeling, which helps to promote speeding. And in this situation, for whatever reason, if the driver is not paying attention, it would possibly promote that vehicle to leave the road. So looking at this, we've now done our data research, which again, we started in 2014. We've heard from the residents in the beginning phases, and we know our needs and our goals. So we've gone through and we created actually 3 alternatives. I know generally we've been talking 2 because there are 2 alternate concepts, but of course the first alternative is no change. And in this situation, the city would simply go out, we could repave the road, we could take care of the maintenance issues like the traffic signals, look at bad sidewalks, replace that, but then we would return the roadway back to its current condition or current layout for striping and vehicle traveling. We have concept 1, which is a reduced width 4-lane roadway. We have a second concept, which actually includes a segment with 2 lanes, that'd be 1 lane in each direction, as well as a roundabout, the Harbor Island intersection. So we're going to go ahead and take a closer look at those. There's quite a few improvement items here, so we're going to kind of go through. We've set up this leader here so we can talk about them as we come down. And they do kind of differ as we go through segments of Bayside Drive, so we'll kind of march down starting here at Coast Highway in the upper left, and then continue our way down to the Jamboree intersection. First and foremost, when we started looking at the major intersections, Coast Highway and at the other end, Jamboree Road, we realized that we do need to maintain the complete outbound lane configuration. So again, at Coast Highway, we actually have 2 left turn lanes, a through left, and then an optional right as we reach the intersection. So that would stay in this situation. Coming southbound on, the initial concept was to reduce that down to 1 lane. We designed in kind of a wider 14-foot lane that would promote free flow, and a wider bicycle lane. And this is something we've seen successfully accomplished down here at Coast Highway and Avocado. We're building on that model, knowing that there's only 1 left turn lane on, 1 right turn lane on, 1 southbound through lane. What that means, and even in observation, generally there's not 2 people entering the segment at the same time. Putting a single lane, the goal is to accomplish changing the motorist perspective of the roadway. They're coming off a multi-lane, high-speed arterial, such as Coast Highway. We're going to bring them down into a single lane. This changes the way they're looking at the road as to more of a local street. Now, throughout the past few days, we've actually had quite a few resident concerns. We've received those, and that's caused us to start looking at this and evaluating a little bit more. One of the primary concerns is access for the right turns into these driveways, as well as the Linda Isle community. And with that, unfortunately, we couldn't make the slides, but we do feel there may be some ways to better accommodate those movements. And of course, those would depend on the preferred alternative, whether it was a 2-lane facility or a 4-lane facility. Moving along, going to this narrowed configuration, we can actually extend the northbound bike lane. This is a missing link that was identified in our bicycle master plan and has been something the bicycle community has been asking for. As we move through, you'll see these orange strips kind of in the median. We have a unique situation out here where we have quite a few driveways in several locations. So what we've done as a detail slide here is we're taking kind of a tactic from our neighbor about 15 miles north of us. This is from the city of Tustin. They used a colored asphalt treatment, but it's at the same surface level as the travel lanes. And what this does is, one, it promotes the median feel for moving motor vehicles, so they feel like there's still a median there, but it's completely passable so we can access all those driveways, residents, and businesses. The number one question we kept getting is, does it have to be red? Well, I'm sure we could pick a different color. It can have stamp pattern, maybe not.
So let me just clarify what you're saying. So so people entering that lane know that they are in a left turn situation? Is that what you're saying? Is that what it's to create?
Yeah, the intent is number one, to give the motorists traveling along Bayside that may not be turning the feel of having a median next to them. That we've realized over the years that feeling may be a little constrained helps them slow down a little bit, maybe lift off the accelerator.
Oh, that they're not right adjacent to the opposite traffic.
Yeah, it's not just a wide open asphalt roadway. But we do realize there are a lot of access points on this road, so this treatment is being used also to allow people to go over it as like a continuous left turn pocket and then turn into those driveways. Okay. So now we're moving down the segment a little bit. This is Harbor Island Drive as the intersection that's shown. In the 4-lane alternative, there's actually no change to the Harbor Island layout. We again have our flush surface mounted median treatment. Now here and strategically throughout the segment, we're looking for opportunities to create a raised median, kind of your traditional raised landscape median. Again, the first and primary purpose of this is to create that channelizing effect for the motorists to hopefully get them to slow down a little bit, but of course it also has a secondary purpose of softening up the roadway with some landscaping. We are proposing radar feedback signs. These are those signs that as you approach them, they tell you what your speed is to notify the motorists that hopefully they're going what matches the sign underneath it, but you may be speeding or not. It's just a way of telling the motorist what's going on. And then in this situation for the 4 lanes, we're actually narrowing the lanes. So currently they're 11 or 12 feet. We're talking about going down to 10 feet. A standard lane typically is 10 to 12 feet. Freeway lanes are more in the 12-foot, the larger arterials. Most roadways and kind of moving into that 10-foot lane, and this does create a little more of a constrained feel, and again, this is moving towards that traffic calming option. Now, most cars are about 6.5 to 7 feet wide, so this still allows maneuvering room. It would also accommodate large trucks and buses. We're now kind of in the middle segment of Bayside Drive. That kind of blue-shaped ladder there to the left is actually the pedestrian signal crosswalk, and at the far right side is the Promontory Drive East intersection. Again, we propose a radar speed feedback sign. We would be rehabilitating the pedestrian signal. It's reaching the end of its serviceable life. We actually have a good opportunity here for a pedestrian improvement. That was a comment that was brought to us by the public. Generally, people walk along that south sidewalk and head over towards the Pavilions parking lot, whether they're going to Pavilions or the restaurants there. Unfortunately, they didn't feel there was a good opportunity to cross, so many of them are finding themselves walking across mid-block. With the addition of this length of sidewalk, which goes from the pedestrian signal to Promontory Drive East, we would allow them then to cross at the controlled intersection and then continue on to their destination. A similar gap closure for the bicyclists. In this location, east of the pedestrian crosswalk, all the way down to Jamboree Road, there is no bike lane there. If you're coming from Harbor Island Drive, you're actually in a bike lane adjacent to the parked cars. But we don't allow cycling on the sidewalk. Once you get to the pedestrian signal, we actually ask the cyclists go onto the sidewalk because there is no bike facility. And most cyclists choose to take the lane, which of course is within their rights. But now we've increased the exposure for the cyclists as well as possibly frustrated some motorists.
Can I ask a question about the sidewalk?
Sure.
Where it ends there at the crosswalk, why wouldn't we extend it? Or why can't it be extended all the way up towards Coast Highway?
Well, it's in the slope. It's Irvine Company property. We've talked to them briefly about it. But continuing it on doesn't really gain us much because in that segment, there's no direct access for any homeowners. Promontory Point would actually come down a walkway that leads to this crosswalk, and then most of our other residents are coming along the south side.
Oh, okay. So there's no demand to extend it?
That's correct.
Okay.
So then we're going to go ahead and move to the easterly section. Again, we're talking about our reduced 4-lane concept, or concept 1. The intersection of the far right here, this is Jamboree Marine, or the entry to Balboa Island. So first and foremost, we have another green island here. This again is a strategically placed raised landscaped island. In this segment, we actually have quite a few driveway accesses as well, so we will work to move these to where we can get some of a vertical component in here without blocking any of the current ingress or egress. We of course have our flush mount decorative medians. And then as we talked about at Coast Highway, we do maintain all the lanes approaching the Marine Avenue intersection, but we were able to slip in the bicycle storage pocket for cyclists wishing to continue on Bayside Drive. This is a treatment that we've been adding to other dedicated right turns and free right turns throughout the city, and it's been very successful.
Brad, I have a question. So currently the residents coming out of their driveway and wanting to turn left, are they able to do that and cross over?
Yes, they would go into kind of that flush mount median area, and they could use that as a two-way left turn as they do
Okay,
currently.
so they can continue to do what they're currently doing.
And part of that consideration is where we do add the physical raised medians would be set in size to accommodate those movements. And then, of course, rehabilitate the Jamboree intersection, like the pedestrian signal, reaching the end of serviceable life for this, so that's new wiring, control equipment, and such. And then we have noticed, and again, another good comment from the community was the sidewalk along the south side here is actually in fairly poor shape, so that could be considered for replacement as well. So looking at the expected benefits of Concept 1, or our 4-lane alternative, there are some potential minor speed reduction and traffic calming. Again, that's created by the addition of the medians and kind of a more constrained feel to the motorist. That also adds to our lane channelization. We do have our good sidewalk and bicycle improvements. There is a component of roadway beautification by breaking up that long black asphalt look, as well as adding in some landscaping. And then probably the more interesting comment here, the potential motorist diversion back to Coast Highway. There are quite a few people that believe that the motorists that wish to go a little faster, get to their destination a little sooner, may be better served on Coast Highway, which is, of course, multiple lanes and designed for higher speeds. So moving into our second concept, which of course has had more discussion, we have several components here that match the first concept, and these are these blue components that we're calling out. In the interest of time, we'll kind of breeze through those, and then we'll go ahead and have some green pop-ups that'll actually show us the differences. So again, maintaining capacity, extending our bike lane. We did discuss the one-way southbound lane or entrance lane and the potential to revise that. What we have now is south of Harbor Island Drive, we would actually go to a 2-lane facility. That's 1 lane in each direction, and then that helps accomplish greater separation for the cyclists as well as the homes. We'd be pushing the motorists into the center of the roadway by only allowing 1 lane, and then that, of course, is done with a buffered bicycle lane, which we would intend to use kind of the same decorative treatment as the medians.
So let me go back if
Sure.
you could. So to the left of the entry there, the Linda Isle entry, so you brought traffic down to a single lane.
Okay, here, yeah.
And then you expand it to a double lane. So what's the logic behind that?
Well, it's actually, it would be, the way this concept is shown, it's a single lane entering from Coast Highway, and it would say a single lane. When we say 2-lane facility, it's actually 1 lane in each direction. Traditionally, when we say 2 or 4 lane, that's for the entire roadway cross-section.
So you're not expanding it or creating?
No, we would not be.
I see, okay. Because didn't we, I think I saw some letters from people that said it would be a problem because of the enhanced activity there with the restaurants and condensing it all into a single lane. That's problematic.
Yeah, if I could, we did get some comments, and traffic staff went back last couple days and didn't have a chance to come up with a drawing, but we do have an alternative for this intersection. We could refine it more, where you could have 2 lanes coming in. Linda Isle was one of the real concerns. They thought coming in and out of their area would be problematic. You could also do a drop right-hand lane into them and also a right-hand acceleration out. We've got a real tentative sketch for that, but it wasn't thoroughly vetted with sight distance. And the one lane coming in could be a two-lane like it is today. We don't feel it's necessary. Again, Brad pointed out Avocado right here. This was successfully done here. We brought one lane in just because the way the turning movements are, there's only one at a time. And there's plenty of capacity there to handle one lane. The driveway movements we'd want to look at a little further. That could be a bolt-on option to this or the prior concept, but we're pretty confident this will work. We could work out that details.
Pretty confident the 2 lanes would work?
We're confident the one lane would work because it does flow now, but we would do maybe some modifications to allow maybe a right turn into, Linda Isle, and a right turn out coming off that area. We have plenty of room for it. I just don't have a detail yet to draw that up.
Where is there plans for any new restaurants or commercial south of Linda Isle Drive? Or the Linda Isle access? There isn't any. In fact, all of the commercial is served off of Coast Highway in this location, in that segment of Bayside between Coast Highway and Linda, or it's served off of Bayside near Jamboree.
Correct. Those are the 2 commercial centers on either end.
Right. Okay.
There are some residents, though, right next to the driveway here, between here and Harbor Island Drive. There's 3 residences.
I appreciate that, but the argument that there is more commercial coming,
Yes.
Not down, it's just up by the coast.
There is a discussion, I know, and Linda Allen brought this up, and again, I don't think it protrudes into this conversation, but the Irvine Company, where the old Reuben E. Lee is building commercial, or residential, restaurants out there. Again, that access is off Coast Highway.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. We'll continue on. We're back down at Harbor Island Drive. Again, we have our raised landscape median and our flush median. We have our buffered bike lanes, which are creating that one lane situation. What we like to show here, I think this slide does detail out kind of how it will help channelize the moving motorists. Now, when we came up with the one lane concept, it actually is a wider lane, kind of a 14-foot lane that will promote free flow. But again, we have that greater separation away from the homes, the sidewalk, and the bicyclists, which will help increase the sight distance for those exiting onto Bayside Drive, as well as gives the motorists a little more room to maneuver should they need to. We also have the roundabout. This is probably the most discussed item in any of our proposals. I do have some detailed slides on this, so we'll come back to that. We're back in the middle section here. We do have our pedestrian new sidewalk extension as well as our bike lanes. But we also, in this section, we do transition it back to 4 lanes as you head east to in front of the Pavilion's parking lot towards Jamboree. When we looked at it, we felt that section actually was better served with the 4-lane facility. So this is where the transition would occur. As we're in our far easterly section here by the Jamboree Marine intersection, there actually are no changes between this and the original concept. Here, the idea is to use our reduced width 4-lane option. And then we had talked about the other items such as the flush mounted median, our strategically placed raised medians, and the damaged sidewalk replacement. So let's take a look at the roundabout. There's a good picture here. This is actually in Ladera Ranch in South County. This is a modern design. This isn't the traffic circles we've seen, say, in Old Town Orange or Long Beach. They have been proven to reduce speeds and calm traffic. They've been proven to reduce incidents and the severity of injuries related to those intersections. They generally have a continuous flow because they work off of yielding as opposed to stopping at a red light or a red signal. And it does provide some good landscaping opportunities as well as the potential for a neighborhood monument, which some of our communities seemed excited about. And I think more importantly, this is becoming more common within, of course, the U.S., but more importantly, Orange County. I know there's a bit of a fear of something new, but we've seen Ladera Ranch has several in their community, such as pictured here. City of Irvine has 3 or 4 that are already constructed, and they are building about 4 or 5 more in their new 5 Points neighborhood, which is the old El Toro Marine Base. We've heard from San Clemente, talked with them, they're proposing them. So these are new treatments that we're going to start seeing more and more. Looking at our little concept, we'll kind of detail out the essentials of a roundabout. Of course, we have our landscape median. This is a place where cars should not be. It'd be a raised area where cars would have to go around. We have a mountable area that's usually kind of a slight raise to it. This is to allow larger trucks to go around it. Their rear trailing axles can go over this section, but it would still deter passenger cars from going over it. We have our deflection islands, better known as splinter islands, which help start the turn into the roundabout and regulate the speeds. Of course, our crosswalks, and in this proposal, we could even add a crosswalk along the west leg of Bayside. And then an interesting note we noticed as we were looking at this for cyclists. Typically, bicyclists are meant to go through the roundabout. I personally have ridden through quite a few and find them quite comfortable. But we also know there may be some less confident cyclists out there. We've also identified this as a junior lifeguard route, so we're thinking more of that type of cyclist. So in this design, we've been able to create kind of a bypass where the cyclist could utilize the sidewalk and crosswalk as opposed to taking the lane through the roundabout. Looking at some of the benefits, this is actually the roundabout that's in Shady Canyon. Our neighbors just to the north in Irvine. This is about Sand Canyon and 405. This roundabout's been in for quite a while, I'd say since about 2003. This is a good look at kind of our splinter island. Roundabouts create a lower speed. They're generally designed for about 25 miles per hour inside of the circle. So you would come into this roundabout as we're facing. The island sets up that curve and then sets you up for the second curve, and that's what regulates the speed and makes them more controlled. Then, of course, in our situation, then you'd be controlled in and out at a lower speed. They're also free-flowing in this situation where you can see we have a yield. This is a good picture because there's absolutely no cars in the roundabout at this time. So if you were approaching this at this time, you could enter into the roundabout without stopping because there are no cars circulating through here. If you did have to yield, you'd only be yielding for those cars in there. You wouldn't be delayed by a stop sign or a red light. There's also a significant benefit to intersection safety. This exhibit on the left shows a typical 4-lane intersection in which other traffic engineers have identified a potential for 32 collision points within that intersection. That's what all that kind of mix of red dots is. That would be for vehicle to vehicles and about 24 potential locations where collisions could happen in the intersections for vehicles and pedestrians. Roundabouts, that's reduced to 8 for vehicles to vehicles as well as 8 to vehicles and pedestrians. So there's a significant reduction in the potential for incidents. Also, we'd like to talk about the reduced incident severity, that's injury severity. Traditional 4-lane intersections or traditional intersections, we often see what we call broadside collisions, which have significant injury or worse. And that's where a car leaving, say, the intersection is hit on the driver's side or passenger side door at kind of a free flow speed, and often that's where the motorist or their passenger is least protected. In a roundabout, broadside collisions are virtually eliminated, and they're actually translated more into a rear end type of collision or a side swipe, of course, of which have much less injury potential.
Brad,
Sure.
so these 20 or 32 vehicle conflicts, is this the same location where we've had accidents? And this is why you're placing the traffic circle there?
This is just a general graphic showing how a traditional 4-leg intersection, similar to Harbor Island and Bayside, this isn't directly related to that. You know, these aren't actual intersection plots, or excuse me, accident plots that we've seen.
But are we correcting a site where accidents, or improving a site where accidents have occurred?
Yeah, and I think where Brad's going is there's probably not as many accidents in the intersection itself. The primary function here is we've had a lot of accidents due to speed on this road. And as you saw, you go, if you remember Bayside Drive, as you come through this intersection, you enter a curve as you're going around there. And a lot of those accidents have happened right there because people are speeding too fast past this point, not negotiating that curve correctly, sideswiping cars, hitting cyclists, hitting a couple of houses. So we're trying to slow them down. The design, as he says, about 25 miles an hour, free flowing, but just slows you down, gets your attention, then you come back on your way in this.
So this is right where that curve is?
This intersection is just before that curve, at the start of that curve.
So, of course, we didn't just decide to draw a circle on the plan. We came up with a quick analysis of it. Per the Federal Highway Administration, roundabouts that are single lane, such as we're proposing, are able to handle up to about 25,000 cars a day. As we pointed out earlier, we have about 14,000, so about half that. And we ran a highway capacity manual analysis. That's actually a standard form of reviewing intersection operation, and we got level of service A. Now, A is the best, kind of like a report card that goes all the way to F. This being an A, we would predict that it would be free-flowing as well as have a good opportunity for motorists to enter in off the side street into the roundabout. We also took a look at the lane reduction, the idea of reducing from 4 to 2 lanes. Of course, there's reduced capacity there. As we talked about earlier, currently with 4 lanes, we're about 17% utilization of that capacity. Reducing it to 2 lanes, that bumps it to about 34%. Again, it's LOSA. We would expect this to be still free-flowing and a nice drive and still provide opportunity for side street people and driveway to get onto the roadway. So the benefits from concept 2, we would expect a much more significant speed and speed-related incident reduction, mainly due to the roundabout and the 25-mile-per-hour design speed within that. We would also have better channelization because of the single lane and allowing to add in that buffered bike lane, which would create kind of a channel or a medium feel on both sides. We would see a reduction of sidewalk cycling. Putting in the buffered bike lane has shown that we actually have more comfort in the bike lane, and that would draw cyclists back out. We would get more of a local feel. Again, we have our motorist diversion back. Again, we feel that the motorists who wish to speed are better served on Coast Highway. And then there's been some discussion about a golf cart network, a golf cart traveling network, where in a situation potentially we could have golf cart owners from Balboa Island could possibly get to, say, the Dunes or Bayside, move up. And that's really related to being able to add in a wider bike lane and the buffer component of it. So there's a potential there. As David mentioned...
Brad, if I can interrupt before you get into this, did you work up a typical section of that 2-lane segment?
We have looked at it. We don't have it with us.
Okay, so you're talking about a buffered bike lane, not a class 4 cycle track.
That's correct.
What's the width of the buffer?
It varies from 3 to 5 feet, depending on where we're at.
Why not a cycle track?
The cycle track wasn't considered because we do have several driveway access points that we'd have to cross in. Yeah.
Okay.
Sure. Yeah, and for the audience, class 4 bike lane is a new terminology where it'd be an actually protected bike lane with some sort of raised feature, but then vehicles wouldn't be able to cross over.
I've seen those.
Yeah.
Can I just ask another question as we traverse through Bayside? Where is the area where residents complain about the unloading of cars? Obviously, I know where the car dealership is. So where those big trucks park?
We'll back up real quick.
There's been a concern up by Linda Isle. The auto dealer across the street tends to have their car carriers come in and park in this little, if you look at that orange island right there, if you could point to that, Brad. They come in and they park there and unload, and that causes problems with Linda Isle and others because of the turning movement, the sight distance, the noise, and other things. So it's more of a code correction there, or maybe a police action. We thought even on this plan we could even put striping legends down. Because that is flush, we could say no parking things in the median itself. But we'll need to start working actions against the auto dealer to get them off the street. That is some of the concerns, I think, from Linda Isle that concerns with this won't work well, because if we remove that, I think the function works well. They'll have all the sight distance and lane what they need.
Thank you.
So as David mentioned, we did have quite a bit of community outreach. You know, we looked at all the people that this roadway, that use the roadway, that travel along the roadway, as well as those that are immediately impacted by how the roadway operates. And we kind of focused it down to those people that either take direct access on the segment or live immediately adjacent to it. And with that, we went out to their boards. We talked to their association, several of the residents, and that included Promontory Bay, Linda Isle, Harbor Island, Beacon Bay, Bayside Coves, and Promontory Point. We also reached out to the Bayside Marina Boatyard because we do know they take delivery of very large vessels at times. And then there has been some conversation with Balboa Island. They've been very interested in this well that Dave has been talking with them. We did not go directly to them, but of course they were invited to the meeting, and there has been some other discussion. Overall, the feedback at first, you know, it was great. The communities welcomed us into their board meetings. I think they were happy to be involved in the project in the conceptual stages. Overall, I think there's some positive outlook here. Looking at some of the key points of the feedback, the residents fronting Bayside Drive showed strong support of the hybrid plan. That's the 2 lanes, 1 lane in each direction with the roundabout. as it showed the most potential for reduction of speed and speed-related incidents. And again, they directly front the roadway, so they have more impact from that. Most residents said the roadway would benefit from beautification, creating more of a residential, less of a big arterial feel. Most of the residents also like the idea of the bicycle and pedestrian improvements. But the majority of the homeowners, those not necessarily fronting the roadway, did have concerns about the potential congestion caused by reducing from 4 to 2 lanes, as well as concerns about the roundabout and driver experience and how would they do negotiating it. Additionally, as Dave pointed out, or with your question, Madam Mayor, was we did hear from our residents on the north end, mainly Linda Isle, about the operation of both the auto dealership, their transporters, as well as the operation of the restaurants up there near Coast Highway. Also, Linda Isle, and I think it'd be safe to say Balboa Island could be on this portion. I think they both requested the roadway actually remain as is and neither concept be brought forward. So, tentative schedule, the goal here, of course, is to get guidance on which item or which concept may be preferred or which of the 3 alternatives. With that, Public Works staff could take that preferred item. We could begin design at the beginning of the year. The idea is around the 50% mark, probably closer to summer. We could have those details ironed out. We could also have some landscaping ideas. We could possibly bring that back to council for discussion. And then the hope would be to begin construction in the fall of 2017 after the summer season. So in conclusion, we have a quick summary. Of course, we have the no change alternative we're considering that's about $1.2 million. Again, these are conceptual. That's the fine print on the bottom. With that is we fix some maintenance issues. We repave the roadway, redo the traffic signals, and take care of some other curb and sidewalk type issues. We have the 4-lane alternative, or concept 1. We would assume that would be about $1.8 million. There is some moderate traffic calming benefits, which we've discussed. It does include the bike lane and pedestrian improvements, and it was the preferred alternative by the majority of the residents that do not front Bayside Drive. Concept 2, our hybrid alternative, a little bit more money because of the roundabout and the buffered bike lanes. We're at $2.2 million. That's a reduction to 2 lanes, 1 lane in each direction in that middle segment. It does include the roundabout. There is a greater potential for traffic calming benefits, increased cycling comfort, reduction of sidewalk cycling, which was a concern of several residents. It was a preferred alternative for those residents that live immediately adjacent to the roadway, again, for the potential to reduce the speeds and speed-related incidents. But again, the other homeowners had some strong concerns about the reduced capacity on the roadway as well as the roundabout. And with that, we conclude the presentation.
And just some follow-up comments before we get to the council comments. Remember, too, that we discussed the entry off Coast Highway. We can do a different alternative there to do maybe the 2 lanes in if we have to, or maybe a combination of 1 lane in with right turn lanes in and out of Linda Isle. That is an easy option to probably accommodate. We just need to work out some details there. And I was going to say there are some additional costs here that we haven't defined. We had a couple emails about you haven't defined all the costs yet. Remember, we're really at a concept level. We didn't want to spend a lot of money yet on design. We're just trying to get a layout that we can work with. We understand there's more concrete that needs to be replaced. We haven't identified that yet, so that might add to these numbers. Also, I was going to say, Brad did a great job laying this out. There is a lot of perception that it's a very busy street, and the arterial, the numbers don't show it. I mean, it does have traffic on it, but for a 4-lane facility, it's relatively light. The utilization shows that. We've witnessed it. I've had the traffic engineers myself out there. So we're not real concerned about the 1-lane option for the center portion. I know that causes some concern with a lot of people, but we're pretty confident that'll work. Remember, too, that the intersections control this link, and the intersections are where the capacity really needs to happen, and all the intersections are staying the same. We're keeping the same number of lanes flowing. That's where people back up and wait for the lights, but as you flow through and you watch it, you could get through with 1 lane pretty easy. One other comment we had was about emergency vehicles going through there. If you look at any of the concepts, there's a free area between the flush medians and the bike trail and the wide lanes that allow you to easily pull over and even in the 1-lane option, there's 20-something feet there between the curb and the center median that an emergency vehicle could go through, people could pull over. You don't need 2 particular lanes. You have lots of room to move over on that. So that was a concern we heard. I wanted to say if you were really concerned and if you hear from the crowd today, because we've had a lot of concerns about accidents and speeding, we do feel the option 2 works and would probably be the preferred option to take care of that if you choose to go that route. Option 1 does create some traffic calming, not as much as option 2. So we want to leave you with those thoughts, and we're happy to answer any questions or take public comments.
All right, thank you very much. Mr. Curry, your name's here. Was that from leftover? All right, any comments before we go public? All right, let's open it up to public. How many of you want to speak on this matter? Very good. Why don't we line up and stand at both lecterns, if you would, please, so we can move through it quickly. So be sure to identify yourself. And we'll begin. Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mayor Dixon and Council. I'm Peter Dunkel, reside at 607 Bayside since 1985. I'm in the trucking business. I handle all safety for the business I'm connected to. And I'm very happy to see somebody finally taking results. I can make it fast. I had 2 vehicles total, but those are material items. One was 6 houses down when I thought I towed it away. Another one took a palm tree out. But once again, those are material items. That's not what I'm concerned about. These are big, good leads. Number 2 is good because those homes were built with some kind of concern because of the street was busy. There was a big thing was built. Each home, as each 2 homes have 2 driveways. That makes additional parking, but it makes it a little safer for us to pull out. But you pulling out with cars doing 50 miles an hour, buses doing 60 miles an hour, you say they don't? They do. You live there, 2 o'clock in the morning, you're hearing noise. Talk to promontory apartments. Those people are irate. They hear my door when it closes. Those homes hear the noise all night long. The noise isn't the problem. It goes over our homes because most of our homes are far from the street because we know it's a busy street. We put our bedrooms away from the street. I had a deaf son. I put him right on the street. It didn't even bother him, the lights. But what I'm saying is when you pull out of our homes, our cars are facing towards the traffic. That's additional plus. We aren't backing into the traffic. But when we do, there's a car usually parked there. My pickup truck, I usually park away from a driveway, giving people concern. When they make that left turn, as you learn in driving training when you're 15 and a half years old, the car on your left is the one that's going to get you. You pull out, you look to your left, you look to your right, you look to your left real hard. This new bike lane Compose 2 puts that car so far away from us, it increases the safetiness so much. Right now, we're pulling into traffic. We're causing a lot of error. That number 2 will get those vehicles away from us. We're making a turn. And bicycles, you ever seen a duck with a bunch of kids going down the lake? That's where the bicycles are. They have all the little kids with them going down a busy street. And all of a sudden, somebody who doesn't live there open their door and puts a young little kid into traffic. And this will really eliminate that. And that's what my concerns are, the kids, the youth that are on that street. Yeah, I lost 2 cars. You know, people doing, both of them are doing excess 100 miles an hour. If you're any familiar with racing, it's called a sweeper. It's fun to go fast through a sweeper. They go off the islands and they get in these fast cars and they go through the sweepers, excess 100 miles an hour down there, and this would eliminate it, or at least help. Thank you for the time, and I appreciate all you do and all your concerns.
All right, thank you. Again, if you would each line up at each one of these podium tables, and then we can move forward. So the next speaker, if you would please go over there. Yes, ma'am.
Good evening, Mayor Dixon and City Council and staff. Thank you. I am Lori Teslow. I live in the Bluffs, but my parents, Paul and Marilyn Teslow, live at 615 Bayside Drive, right next to Peter. And my father was unable to come tonight. My mother did come with me. But my dad wrote an email that he didn't send until last night, so it didn't make the agenda. So he asked me to read it, and then I'd like to make a couple comments myself. This is from my dad and mom. As 25-year resident owners at 615 Bayside Drive, this is an appeal to the Newport Beach City Council for positive action on the proposed Bayside street revision that includes the turnabout option. Aside from more attractive definition to the entrance of high-end properties of Harbor Island Drive, Beacon Bay, and Harbor Island, the turnabout will offer less wait time and safer left turn in exiting Harbor Island Drive. Bayside Drive is a residential street that has become a dangerous racetrack for all users of the busy 4-lane speedway. Heavy traffic includes a high volume of bicycles, pedestrians, and residents' guests emerging from or entering residential driveways, all of whom are endangered by speeding motorcycles and vehicles. Although no fatalities have yet occurred, the periodic occurrence of injury accidents is presumably confirmed in Newport Beach police reports. This current condition presents a life safety issue that should not be overlooked in the City Council's duty to protect local residents and visitors from known hazards. Thank you for recognizing and preparing a thoughtful engineering solution to a long-standing public danger. That's my dad's statement. Also, having visited them lately daily over the last 25 years, my own observation is that there is no neighborhood ambiance there. When they first moved there, I was not even in favor of it because it just didn't seem like a residential area. But it's a wonderful area. Having lived in Long Beach and working at the hospital right above the Long Beach traffic circle for 5 years, I negotiated that notorious traffic circle twice a day, every weekday for 5 years. And that was an efficient traffic circle. I never once saw an accident. I think people are afraid of something they just don't know. Traffic circles, or in this case, a residential roundabout, is really not a difficult thing to negotiate. Bayside doesn't need to be an arterial. There's PCH. It is a residential area. The commercial areas are on either end of the street where there's plenty of decent access. The other thing that I'd like to comment about is the use of the sidewalks by cyclists, particularly cyclists going north. The competent, really experienced cyclists tend to use bike lanes, but the hobbyists on their beach cruisers and so on, go excessive speed. Also, there was an assault between a bike rider and a pedestrian with his family. Recently, the police were called, and the injured man was taken to the hospital. So,
all right. Thank you very much. All right. Next speaker, please.
Good evening. My name's Seymour Beek. I live on Balboa Island. I traverse this stretch of road in an automobile probably at least twice a day. I ride a bike on it sometimes. I walk down Bayside Drive. I run down Bayside Drive. I go through the intersection down to Harbor Island Road quite often because I keep a boat down at the Balboa Yacht Basin. So I'm very familiar with it. In fact, I may hold the course record for the most trips on Bayside Drive of any living person. I'll be challenged on that. But anyway, I like it just the way it is. I think it works great. If you guys really want to spend some money, you could go to option 1. That's not bad. I think option 2 is terrible. But I vote for leaving the configuration just the way it is.
All right, thank you. Next, sir.
Hello, my name is Doug Simpson. I've lived in Newport Beach since 1964. I spent 11 years of that down in the 1900 block of Bayside Drive, where it's 2 lanes. I last 24 years in Beacon Bay. I use that intersection at Harbor Island Drive and Bayside many times during the week. I mean, 4 or 5 times a day. I've seen many close calls, particularly when the junior lifeguard kids are going. I mean, there's literally 60 bikes at one time, and all the kids with their red backpacks, they're going there. And then, of course, there's a delivery truck trying to get a boat into Bayside Marine. Anyway, the whole Basin Marine, the whole thing is a roundabout works. A 2-lane there would really work well, slow down traffic. This evening at 5:30, I was coming home from my office at the airport. I noticed it was 40 miles an hour. I was in the fast lane. A 50-mile-an-hour guy passes me here, and then a black Porsche passed all of us going, I swear to God, 70 miles an hour. If you had a video camera on it, you would verify that. That's just what happens. It's too wide. And I think 2 lanes works, particularly with the traffic counts, and I really encourage you to do that hybrid, and that roundabout really works. Recently, last point, the city of Rockland, up by Sacramento, I was recently there off the highway, off Interstate 80, and they have a bunch of roundabouts. I mean, many of them. You go through that town, and it really works. So I'd encourage you to set in on that method of slowing down the traffic. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, please. Please come. Please, ma'am, please come.
Good evening.
I'm Sally Sopkin, and I reside on Harbor Island Drive, and I'm also with the Promontory Bay Harbor Island Homeowners Association. And my views here tonight are partially from some of the meetings we've gone to, but personally are my own also. One thing I want to remind the committee is to not lose sight of the issue at hand, which concerns the rate of travel, reckless driving, and the accidents. Now, it was mentioned earlier about where the curve was, and the attachment A, which has just an outline. You have an entryway at Harbor Island Drive, and then you have the houses, and then there's an area that's the beach and just the back of the Promontory Bay Apartments up to where the driveway is to go up the hill. That's where the curve is, right at when they go up the hill. And so once they come off the curve, when they have too much to drink, the curve, they go right across because there's no median there and go right into the houses. And so it has nothing to do with the traffic circle area. My concern is against the traffic circle because of the aesthetics. I do understand about the issue of traffic, but if you went with the plan of just having one lane each way, the configuration is very similar to that on Avocado Drive south of PCH, which is just a beautifully striped street, lots of room for the bicycles, safety for the people getting out of their houses, because there's a shared driveway where when they go into their driveway and into their garages, they have to back out many times into the street. Sometimes they could turn around, but then there's parked cars. Having an extra buffer there, a little bit more room, gives them then the visibility. Having a bike lane there then gives the bicyclists a chance to be visible also. My concern with the traffic circle, especially with the bicyclists, we have a nice wide lane, so get them off the sidewalk. There's many on the sidewalk. They get into the bike lane and then they get to the traffic circle, then all of a sudden they're meshing with all the cars there, and there's a lot of little kids I'm really, really concerned about. But when you want to solve the problem about the rate of travel and the reckless driving and the drag racing, if you reduce it to one lane on each side, or even one lane on the homeowner side and 2 lanes on the other side, but making sure that you have some of the green dividers, raised dividers at certain appropriate spots, it would slow down the speeding. I appreciate my time.
Thank you so much. Next speaker.
Hi, Mayor, council members. My name is Gregson Hall, and I lived on Bayside Drive, 715, for over 10 years, and seen a lot of accidents there. And I think it's fair to say I'll probably be one of the most impacted people because I live right there, and it's going to slow my commute down. But I'm 100% for the plan too. Just watching the junior guards and everything, it just scares me to death. And I think that buffer area between the cars and the vehicles and the kids riding their bikes would really be a great improvement. And so that's all I want to say. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Hall, and I live on Bayside Drive, and I strongly urge you to approve the concept 2 with the roundabout and narrowing it to one lane on each side. I want to explain that one lane, when they narrow it down, it's only over those 19 residential homes. It's not the whole street. So, and the roundabout would slow the cars down going into that residential area, which I think is very important. I could tell you I walk my dog frequently during the day, and I see cars all the time racing down the street. I don't think concept 1, with keeping the 4 lanes and narrowing it, is going to slow down those cars. You can even post a lower speed limit, and it's not going to slow those cars because they already don't adhere to the speed limit right now. So more needs to be done than that. Since we've been there, there's been 4 accidents, and that involved parked cars hitting our neighbors' homes. And the drivers weren't drinking. This was not even late at night. Just people got distracted, and property was damaged. So, and I'm sure that there's even more accidents that go unreported. I wanted to say also, when I pull out of my driveway on Bayside Drive, it's like I'm pulling out onto a freeway. And when I go to pull out, there's cars parked, so that blocks some visibility. And then you have pedestrians and you have bicyclists that are on the street and also on the curb, and they're going in each direction. And you're pulling out with a car parked right here on the left and trying to look at 50-mile-an-hour cars driving by to get out onto the street just to leave your driveway. So that alone is very dangerous. Also, with the no sidewalk on the other side of the street by Promontory Apartments, I regularly see people crossing pedestrians across the street because there's no sidewalk that is continuous to the shopping center. So they jaywalk across Bayside. Then they can't reach the other side completely, so they stop in the middle while cars are speeding by until they get another freeway to pass again to the other side, because there's no continuous sidewalk where they can cross safely at a sidewalk there. So while I hear about the traffic and people, it might take them a little bit longer if the lane is cut down through those 19 residential homes to one side, each direction, one lane. I do think public safety should be the #1 reason. And if it takes another minute or two to get home, I'm in the same boat, and I'm happy for that delay, because I think it's well worth it. So I really think the concept to the roundabout is very much needed.
All right, thank you very much. Yes, sir, next.
Hi, my name is Chad Hall, and I have a different house on Bayside Drive, 633, and I've lived there for over 10 years. I'm also a board of the Promontory Bay HOA. I've lost count of how many accidents have happened on this street, but 2 that happened in front of my house in recent memory. Well, one was a long time ago. A previous owner of my house had a car drive right into the garage through the wall, and he had an office garage, and had he been in his office, he would have been killed. And then I always, when I have guests come over, I tell them, don't park on the street. It's not safe. You'll lose your driver's mirror. So I tell them to park in my driveway because it's safe, but now not even my driveway is safe. I had a driver go straight. She wasn't drinking. She hit a fire hydrant. The fire hydrant flew 50 feet through the air and hit the back of my truck in my driveway and put a dent in the shape of a fire hydrant in the back of my car like a cartoon. It was amazing. The street has so many accidents, I think, because there's this subtle, long curve that's not tight enough to wake people up, and they're going really, really fast, and they just zone out and go straight, and they hit things. I think the only way to fix this problem, to make it safer and and avoid a potential lawsuit, is to vote for option number 2 and reduce the speed of the traffic. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
My name is Carolyn Klein. I live on Linda Isle. My concern is the area from Pacific Coast Highway into Linda Isle. What they're not considering is that in the morning, trucks are not allowed on Linda Isle until 7 o'clock. They back up about 20 trucks. If you reduce it down to 1 lane at 7 o'clock, no one else is going to get in. They go all the way from the Linda Isle gate, sometimes all the way to PCH. And it happens a lot of times with service people coming in, particularly at 7 o'clock in the morning when they can start work. But you gotta have a lot of access into Linda Isle. The other thing that happens is the people that turn from PCH, a lot of them go to the restaurant, and it's a quick turn. You turn in, and then you turn again. Or you turn from Pacific Coast Highway, and you have to go over 2 lanes to get over there. And there's a lot of accidents there. So you have to keep the entrance from Pacific Coast Highway to Linda Isle 2 lanes on either side. There's just too much action going on there that you can't, reducing it would just slow down everything. And there's too many people turning into the restaurant, they're turning into the gas station, they're turning into Linda Isle. You need the space of 2 lanes to have all the access and have all the service people going in. So you have to have a lot of access. And getting out of Linda Isle, the way it is right now, is sometimes very dangerous because there's not that much space between PCH and the entrance to Linda Isle. So you have to kind of swoop out really fast. And you look at the traffic from the right and traffic from the left, and they go at different times. So I think any reduction in the amount of lanes or the amount of space from PCH to Linda Isle would be very detrimental. And that's why one of the reasons Linda Isle Association, all 103 houses, are totally opposed to this plan. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
I'm Max Hampton. I live on Bayside Drive, and thank you for letting me talk.
I'm sorry, could you repeat your name? I didn't get it.
Max Hampton.
Okay.
I've been on Bayside Drive 22 years. I think maybe I'm wrong in misunderstanding what you were saying, but I think there's a way they can leave the 2 lanes coming from PCH down to Linda Isle, and from there down make it 1 lane after the traffic circle, and that would solve the problem she's talking about. The main problems we're having are from that Linda Isle down to the entrance into the Pavilion grocery store, that area down there. That's where the cars do the speeding. They said the 54 was the highest they'd seen. 54 is not bad on that street. I see cars much faster than that constantly. We hear them. We hear motorcycles. We hear the Porsche, I believe their mechanics must test their cars down there. In the 22 years we've been there, we've had 3 cars jump the curb, run into our house or into the trees in front of our house. All 3 of the people wound up in the hospital. Only 1 had been drinking. 1 actually hit a bicycle on the curb, on the street, on the sidewalk, and I put him in the hospital. Anything we can do to slow it down has got to help. Okay?
Thank you.
Thank
Appreciate it. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, I'm Margot O'Connor, and I live on Linda Isle. And I'm very much opposed to reducing the traffic lanes and constructing a roundabout. I'd like to point out on page 2 of the city staff report, it states, police report data indicates many incidents were largely related to driver impairment. And I'd like to remind you of the city staff report that you read for the Balboa Marina West restaurant, which stated that the reporting district, which includes Bayside Drive and that restaurant, the same reporting district, actually has 10% more crime than the citywide average for Newport Beach. The police attribute this to alcohol. And in fact, 42% of the arrests are DUIs. I think it's a testament to the competence of our police department that there aren't more accidents on Bayside Drive related to alcohol. And I'm really fearful with the new huge restaurant, 400 people, a magnet for the entire Orange County late night bar crowd. I think it's naive to think that all these people, none of them are going to be on Bayside Drive. The exit is actually very close to Bayside Drive and Coast Highway. And it's logical that some of that traffic, and also including the traffic from Newport Dunes Special Events Center, will be heading down Bayside Drive. So I'm fearful of what will happen to those statistics and the accidents on Bayside Drive from drunk drivers. And I think that's an issue that needs to be addressed. Also, regarding the community outreach, Linda Isle was only made aware of these proposals last month. And many of the residents felt that we should have had 3 options. All the homeowners associations should have had 3 options, the 2 concepts, 2 proposals, but also repaving the Bayside Drive and exploring other ways of reducing the speed and dealing with the impaired drivers, etc. On page 5, it states that a large number of residents are concerned with potential congestion created by reducing the number of lanes et cetera, et cetera. And it says with this, the preferred concept is concept 1, which maintains 4 lanes and does not include the roundabout. And furthermore, if we felt that it should have been offered to all the associations, and had that been, that would have been our first. But if that's not an option, then we would really prefer the 4 lanes and no roundabout.
So essentially keep things as they are?
Oh, that was one, we felt that should have been an option that should have been explored by all associations, and that other ways of dealing with speeding should have been explored more. And the association made many suggestions, which I know you all received in your packets. But if that is not an option, then we would be in favor of the 4 lanes.
Okay.
And not a roundabout, because, you know, frankly, getting back to all those impaired drivers, asking them to negotiate a roundabout, that's hard enough for a sober person, I think.
Okay, all right, thank you so much. Next, please come forward, and each of you stand up here. Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. My name is George Schroeder. I've lived in Newport Beach 30 years. I live on the peninsula, but I do drive this area sometimes. For most of the 30 years, I've worked at firms in the fashion center area, so I would oftentimes, you know, travel this way. And sometimes when there's an accident on Coast Highway, Jamboree, you know, the traffic backs up, and so you know the back roads. And Bayside Drive has always been an alternative route, and it's kind of nice because you can whip through there pretty fast. Okay, so and Seymour has been a friend of mine for many years, and I appreciate he likes to get on and off of Balboa Island as quick as he can, and anything that slows people down, people don't like that. But I think at the end of the day, what you have to do as council members is you have to do what's best for the greater good and all of the residents in Newport Beach. And oftentimes I find myself in a personal dilemma. What do I personally want? What's best for me? What do I like? And then what's for the greater good? Okay, and so like I have to ask myself, what is for the greater good? Okay, any of you who have been here long enough remember in the 1990s where the current Starbucks is at, there was a restaurant called the Speedway. It was kind of a fantastic building. It was built to look like a big race car. It looked like an old Porsche, I guess, and you know, right there, okay, and it lasted about 5 or 8 years until they went bankrupt. But when they had their grand opening, they got a permit to close down Coast Highway, Jamboree, and Bayside Drive. They actually raced Formula One cars on the streets of Newport Beach and Bayside Drive because the roads are wide open and that they can drive that fast. You know, a traffic circle would not permit that. Okay, so at the end of the day, when I'm in a hurry to get across town, if I have to slow down for a traffic circle, I do think I would like to hear what Councilman Petros has to say, because this is his field of expertise, but I do believe that you can't get T-boned trying to turn left in a traffic circle. Okay, and as for drunk drivers, a drunk driver on a wide open highway, he's a lot more dangerous than a drunk driver on a narrow highway. Because a narrow highway, he's got to get stopped or he's going to, you know, hit a parked car. A wide open highway, he might speed and go flying into somebody's house. Okay, so, you know, so my thoughts are, even though people hate change, okay, and, you know, when the internet first came out, everybody hated it because they couldn't use it, they couldn't do it, but people can adapt pretty fast when they have to. Okay, so I think once the traffic circle goes in, and I've gone to different, you know, places in the country that have them, I see it the first time, I go, oh my God. But then you drive it a few times, man, it's easy. You don't have to stop, you don't have to wait. Nobody gets in an accident making a left turn. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, please.
Good evening, Mayor. My name's Colin Berger. I live at 601 Bayside Drive. I'd like to say I support option 2, the roundabout. I think it will be a good thing for Bayside Drive, but I would like to reinforce, I think it was Michelle Hall, with regard to driving out of our driveways to get onto Bayside Drive. The kids come down on cycles, not looking. I had an incident where I was pulling out of my driveway A young girl on a cycle came holding her cell phone, reading her emails, and smashed into my car. She fell over. Fortunately, she wasn't hurt, but her iPhone was smashed, and she wanted me to pay for the iPhone. So I told her, let's call the police and let them decide who should pay for the phone. Anyway, all I can say is that I support option 2, the roundabout. I think that will be a great improvement and help slow down the traffic. I actually witnessed the destruction of Peter Dunkel's van, where a car hit his car and moved it onto the other side of the road, into the flower bushes of Promontory Point. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, please.
My name is Jack King. I live at 415 Bayside Drive and have for the past 16 years with my family. I'm one of the 20 or 25 that thus face right on Bayside, and our driveway goes directly into the street. We have to back out regularly, and as has been commented on numerous times, Bayside Drive has become a raceway. There really are no obstacles between the light at Pacific Coast Highway all the way down to Marine. There is a light there at the Promontory Apartments beach, but that's activated only by pedestrian traffic. So basically it's a thoroughfare. I had distributed some Google map photos earlier. Did they get to you folks? Okay, I'll get to those in a second. But basically, we've got a speeding problem, and I think that reducing it to one lane would help. Bayside Drive, as it goes past Marine on down to Marguerite, is one lane each way, and there's seldom congestion down there. But aside from reducing it to one lane, there really needs to be something to slow down the traffic. And there either needs to be a stop sign at Harbor Island Drive or a roundabout. If you look at the photos that I gave to you, the first photo shows East Bluff Drive. And what I tried to do here was to come up with some 4-lane roads that are somewhat similar. And I've circled on that figure 1 3 spots where there are stop signs. So that road does not have the same raceway effect that Bayside Drive does. If you look at figure 2, which is San Miguel over by the Port Streets, they've got actual traffic lights. And there are 3 of them between Ford Road, actually 5 by the time you get down to San Joaquin. If this sort of treatment were given to Bayside Drive, and if you had a stop sign at Harbor Island Drive, that would help reduce the speed. A traffic circle, I think, would have a similar effect and frankly be easier to negotiate. It wouldn't require a full stop, but it would require the slowing that is required. I mean, you've heard of the speeding, you've heard of the accidents that are occurring there. Something needs to be done to slow that traffic. And I can't think of anything besides either a stop sign or that roundabout. So I would vote for option 2 with either a stop sign or a roundabout at Harbor Island Drive. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Mr. King, I appreciate your research there. I would just point out that a stop sign and a traffic circle are indicated as not speed control devices by our state manuals. They are to assign rights of way. We can't install stop signs to control speed. That is not governing in the state of California. They are there to assign right of way, not control speed.
Yes, sir. Please proceed.
Good evening, Mayor Dixon, Mayor Pro Temp Muldoon. Thank you very much, Council, for listening to us. I wonder if I could ask for...
Would you identify yourself?
Oh, I'm sorry. Dave Brennan. My wife and I have lived in Promontory Bay since 1994. And I was wondering if I could ask Mr. Summers to bring up a slide that we can revisit. It's a wide shot of the roundabout. What I'm going to do is just sort of summarize a few of the comments that have been made and also point out a couple of things that may have been missed in the presentation.
You just want the roundabout?
The wide shot, yeah. That shows either side of the roundabout as well.
Or the graphic?
Yeah, the wide aerial shot. Yeah, that's the tight one. Have you got the wide one handy?
Can you go with that one?
There we go, that one right
All
there.
right.
Thank you, thank you. Thanks for the indulgence. We have a unique situation where we live. We front both on Harbor Island and Bayside Drive. And in fact, on Bayside Drive, we have the largest residential exposure. We have 150 feet roughly on Bayside Drive from that intersection. And I just wanted to point out, if you take a look at that slide, the straightest section of this road of Bayside Drive starts probably several hundred yards before where the roundabout is drawn and where the current intersection of Harbor Island Drive is, and continues past where that little park is that's been made that's just past our property. So there's somewhere in the neighborhood of, say, 500 to 700 feet. This is where the maximum speed occurs. This is the maximum acceleration area. This is where maximum speed is achieved. And this is why, as staff brought up, one of the problems is once they get into this section here, now they're going into a curve. So this is where some of the biggest problems happen, is because this area is allowed for maximum speed to develop. Obviously with the roundabout, that's not going to happen. That'll mitigate almost all of the problems that happen south of the roundabout where the curvature area occurs. The other thing I'd like to point out, and it wasn't brought up because this goes beyond the 3-year study that was done by staff, is that there was probably one of the most violent accidents occurred at the intersection of Harbor Island and Bayside Drive. A woman from Beacon Bay was turning left, coming back from probably the store, onto Harbor Island Drive, and she was hit with such impact that her car literally was picked up and thrown into our garage. So I think this needs to be more of an emphasis in terms of what could potentially happen between the intersection of Bayside and Harbor Island relative to serious accidents. The other point I want to bring out that wasn't necessarily brought up in the presentation is that there are more than 20 access points along Bayside Drive. Most of them are residential. So that's all kinds of opportunities for things to happen. More than 20 access points occur on Bayside Drive, and again, most of them residential. The cause for what's happening on Bayside Drive has clearly been indicated by staff. It's excess speed. Option 2 is the only one, as they have indicated, that will significantly reduce excess speed. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Marge Austin, 401 Bayside. Nice to meet all my neighbors. I probably haven't seen all these people.
Excuse me, could you just repeat your last name?
Austin, like Texas. I am the adjacent to Linda Isle entrance. I had a nice chat with Brad the other day. So my driveway, is going to be very affected, obviously, by a change to one lane, because when you speak about where all the traffic is coming from, there's several issues that'll sound like I'm off topic, but first of all, we all know if there are going to be so many construction projects on PCH Bridge and all around that surrounding area, that Bayside intersection, Bayside and PCH, the people are going to generally try to go down Bayside Drive as opposed to PCH, because PCH is going to be pretty blocked up with lots of construction. Trucks going in, going out, bringing in new traffic and new people after it's completed. But even during the construction phase, there's going to be lots of traffic with construction vehicles. So people are going to do, it's naive to think that people won't be going down Bayside Drive. Yes, they want to slow them down, but you're going to have an enormous amount of traffic. I think the numbers will be greater than what they first assumed they would be during the construction period, at least. And so yeah, I think that they should ought to be able to think about ways. I'm not really opposed to slowing down the traffic. I really empathize with the people who've had so many traffic problems beyond going south, beyond Harbor Island Drive. I mean, that seems hideous. But I think in that portion from Linda Isle towards PCH, you have a tremendous amount of congestion, first of all, when you're making a left-hand turn onto Bayside Drive from PCH. You know, you have that awful point of coming right to the 333 entrance of their driveway. You're coming around that turn, and boom, there's people coming off, making quick right-hand turns, coming into the 333 driveway. It's like that little girl who died, had nothing to do with any kind of traffic congestion there, but it's still a hideous thing that happened. But there's just so much traffic coming on, you know, making the turn. The 333 driveway is right there, and it seems like a really bad spot. Okay, I think that their entrance should be pushed down a little further and not be allowed to go right in at that spot, because people are kind of making a right turn, people are making a left turn, and then you're just like, boom, right up against them. Also, just coming around that street, trying to get into my driveway, just like someone wrote in a letter, people do just get right behind you, start honking that you're making a turn. They just have no respect for the fact that you might be going someplace else beside Linda Isle or Harbor Island Drive. It's kind of pathetic. So I'm really obviously concerned because traffic will be in my driveway quite a bit.
Okay, thank you very much.
Hold on.
Yes, if there are any more speakers, please come forward and line up, if you would, please. Yes, sir.
Yes, my name is Jacques Sopkin. I live at 718 Harbor Island Drive.
Could you please pronounce your last name?
Sopkin.
Okay.
Sopkin. I'm retired law enforcement, and I'd just like to remind the board here that they have the wisdom, they need a lot of wisdom, because I, in law enforcement, lived through 2 major earthquakes in the state of California as a law enforcement officer, and that Bayside Drive is the only bypass to US 1, which is Pacific Coast Highway. That is, and they had an accident about 3 weeks ago, and it was like a nightmare over there trying to get people through. The accident occurred at the intersection of Jamboree and PCH. I just remind you that this is a very key street, and it is a major street to substitute for PCH. That's the only thing. I wish you lots of luck with it.
Thank you so much. Any other comments? Okay, please come forward if you would and stand in the aisle just to keep moving things fast. Yes, ma'am.
My name is Cheryl Dunko. I live at 607 Bayside Drive. I really would love to have the option 2 for safety on Bayside.
All right, thank you. All right, any more public comments? Let's bring it back to council. Now, Mr. Currier, you're still there. Are you? Maybe.
That's still from before, but since the light's on, I'll talk anyway.
Right.
First of all, I appreciate all of the input from the residents. I think that's very important. I think it's very clear that the people who live on Bayside and who are the most affected by it understand the need to reduce the speed. I wish I could take some street across town from where I live and make it a speedway so I could go drive on it and then go home to my house and not have to worry about it, but that's not how it works. That's not fair. What we need to do is think about the safety issues here. We need to think about how this impacts the community. I think there's glare issues, by the way, as you make that curve too, both in the morning and the evening, that affects a lot of people and their visual bearings as they go through that turn. I personally will support option 2, and I hope that we're able to move forward with that and get it done.
All right, thank you. Mr. Petros.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I read the staff report. I have personal history on this street. I lost a very dear friend years ago who crashed into a tree. He is no longer with me. So I know from personal experience how dangerous this road can be. I've seen a red 360 Ferrari sprayed across Bayside, and a fella sitting on the curb, just head in hand, going, "What happened?" It's ironic that Mr. Selich can't be up here to hear this. He had 3 incidents where cars flew into his front yard. The amount of accidents that occur on this road are outside the norm for a road of its type. The fact that they occur with vehicles, the fact that they occur with cyclists, with pedestrians is rises to the occasion where if we do nothing, it is the height of irresponsibility. To do nothing is the height of irresponsibility. We must do something. Narrowing the road itself to 10 lanes still maintains a 4-lane section and would encourage motorists to still travel quickly, but in a more confined area, leaving less space to maneuver, to make adjustments. That is not increasing safety. Increasing safety is slowing the traffic down. Now, let's think about this. You can't have high speeds and high congestion. When you have a congested situation, the speed goes down. So clearly, we have an uncongested roadway that is a motorway, and is evidenced by the traffic volume. Even if we reduce that capacity in half, we still have a residual 65% of that capacity available. This will not congest the roadway. It will slow traffic down. It will make it safe for cyclists to maneuver on this regional cycleway. It will make it safe for the young people in our junior guards to get to junior guards and safely come home. It will make it more desirable for people to walk, to get outside and enjoy Newport Beach. And it will affect your quality of life as you live there. In traffic engineering, we operate by an adage, narrow roads, wide nodes. If we can have narrow roads but wide nodes, then traffic moves. That's what we plan for. At both ends of this, we're not touching it. They will stay, the two intersections will remain as they are, making sure that we can have all the capacity we need. The node in the middle at Harbor Island Drive becomes wider. It becomes more rational. The movements, yes, will become safer because they won't be T-bones. So there is absolutely, we have an imperative here. We must do something. And I think that staff has done a great job in laying out all of the reasons why we should move forward. And I, too, will support item 2. In fact, I will move that action.
Thank you. Mr. Duffield.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I use that road all the time. I live nearby it. And I am in agreement with Councilman Petros. Safety is number one. I just believe also that by eliminating the shortcut, if you will, or the bypassing the traffic on PCH would eliminate a lot of cars, not increase the cars. But I am very, very sensitive to the Linda Island residents, and I would encourage staff to help in any way they can. Dave and I spoke earlier tonight. There's some ways to help the left turn going out of Linda Island, and I would encourage to do that. And I don't think that was in the drawings tonight, but I feel like there is hope for the hope there. Also would encourage the offloading of those vehicles, find them quadruple or something, or let's just, as well as the no parking. I heard you comment in the middle of the street signs to help that. I feel like that's something we can get done. And so I am also for concept 2. Thanks.
Mr. Muldoon, Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you. I'm going to be in the minority here, but I wish there was another option. Maybe it's my bad experiences in Europe, but roundabouts make me nervous. But I could see that there's value to it. I think going down to 1 lane on northbound does not make as much sense, in my opinion, as it does going southbound by the homes. But essentially just lodge my dissenting vote.
Okay, thank you. First of all, I support the motion, but a couple points I'd like to see, because I think staff, you're looking for some direction. So in deference to the large number of Bayside resident-facing residents, I think we need to focus on safety being job 1 here, and we cannot tolerate a situation that could contribute to unsafe driving conditions. So, my thoughts to kind of bring all these thoughts together for staff's direction. Let's come back with a conceptual design for option 2 with the roundabout. In deference to comments made for the Linda Isle folks to perhaps consider double lane or 2 lanes in both directions, north and south there, just to make it easy for them. Look at the sidewalk situation and the bike lane situation as you've described. What else? Oh, continue to involve the community. I think Balboa Island felt a little left out. Maybe at least help them understand the benefits of improved safety. And the HOAs, sidewalks. And I think that's, and come back to council with moving forward as quickly as possible with some further discussion and a design contract, I guess, to keep moving this forward in a deliberative way.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Our next thing, if that's where you choose us to go with option 2, and as Mr. Duffield said, we'll look at the 4-lane option there to keep that working for Linda Isle. What we bring you next is probably a design contract. We need to get a designer on board and work out some details. And then from that, we will bring a concept back to you with a more detailed layout along with some of the things you entered, and also the landscape palettes and other things we would typically do with you. So you'd have another chance to look at this option.
I do want to put on the record just to voice the unloading of those cars. I think that is just, we heard it with the proposed auto plan for Mariners Mile. We have to do something about those trucks. So I know it's not part of the highway or the roadway redesign, but from an enforcement standpoint, we really have to figure out what to do. Our residents are impacted negatively for too long with that situation.
Brad was just telling me the code enforcement, we've already heard that. We've got code enforcement working on that, so we'll do something on that too. And also our police can also look at that. And one last comment, I did hear you that we did reach out to Balboa Island. I didn't hear a lot tonight from them, but we will circle back with them, as I promised, if we were going to look at the roundabout option. There were a few people that had concerns about that, and we need to do some legwork there.
Very good. All right, let's call for the vote, please.
Let my motion reflect that the amendment to look at the 4-lane segment between PCH and Linda Isle 2.
All right, call for the vote.
With Mayor Pro Tem Muldoon voting no, the motion carries 4-1. Motion for reconsideration. A motion to reconsider the vote on any action taken by the City Council at either this meeting or the previous meeting may be made only by one of the council members who voted with the prevailing side.
All right, couple announcements. Happy Thanksgiving, everyone. Have a wonderful, safe, and thankful Thanksgiving. And remember, our next meeting is next Tuesday, November 29th. We'll see you again perhaps in a week. So have a wonderful Thanksgiving, and thank you all.